Some technical difficulties, everybody. I don't know why the song isn't playing correctly, but I'm going to keep trying and stay tuned.
Evolution is the fundamental idea in all of life science, in all of biology. When you have a portion of the population that doesn't believe in that, it holds everybody back, really.
Started off with a question, how you gonna deny creation? What you gonna find, come my time is a wasting. When you gonna side at life's intersection, deny or align with divine intervention? How you gonna plant when you can't even stand up? For your fella, man, come on, fella, gotta man up. Better have a plan, stay ahead, man, hands up ahead in the sand is a sad place to end up. Trapdoors on the path, I just laugh in the face, cause the aftermath is all grace. Growth through disaster, forged by the pain. Faith is the strength that helps us maintain. You want supernatural acts and just pray. You need something real, read a chapter a day. Why take the chance, don't ignore or delay. Examine the text to see what they say. Life's just like a maze that's ever changing. Up, down, sideways, rearranging. What we need is a base to put our faith in, a place to build off a true foundation. Life's not a race, a game in which you're winning. You might not want to place all your faith in what you're getting. Let's all take the time to look at the beginning. The book of Genesis and the origin of sinning. See that they be teaching the magic like in a coven. Now some people believing that something just came from nothing. The confirmation bias is something they're calling science. A combination of atheism and pseudoscience. What we really need to do is take this mixture. Look at all the pieces in a bigger picture. Gather all the data and here's the clincher. See how it aligns with the holy scripture. Open up your eyes and ears and spread the word. Enough of all the lies for years, it's been absurd. Evolution never happened, no matter what you heard. I don't wanna burst your bubble, but it never occurred. The last thing you wanna be is apathetic. You wanna be a bee in a hive, cause that's pathetic. Monkey see is what you do, you think it's energetic, but synthetically controlled, remote like cybernetic. You could be a part of the main attraction, controlled by remote control, your every action. A chain reaction, a brain extraction, solution to the paradigm, problem reaction. Do you put your trust in God to be redeemed, or just turning your wheels like a cog in the machine? Are you caught in between, like a horrible dream? One extreme or the other, like a balancing beam? We believe in truth and that is what you're getting. You wanna have proof, then read what has been written. You wanna be saved, you wanna be forgiven, then repent and believe, receive eternal living. Many people searching for something that's absolute, but when they do the digging, there's something they can't compute. It's not science fiction, it's facts they can't refute. The connections to original sin's forbidden fruit. They can see you everywhere, it's all connected. And even if you do not care, you're still affected. If you object, you'll be corrected. If you don't comply, then you'll be inspected. So many facts are skewed by evolution, and how we believe affects every conclusion. Masses deceive, they feed on the illusion, cause Bill Nye of science guy says it's been proven.
Once in a while I get people that claim they don't believe in evolution. And my response generally is, so why not? Really, why not?
My windows roll down, let him hear the word as I'm pulling into town. Pulling into town. Deacon making noise as he's pulling into town. I know you ain't afraid to preach. Got your windows rolled down, let him hear the word as you're pulling into town. Pulling into town. Better make some noise when you're pulling into town. Man, I'm just not ashamed. Got the keys to the gate. I lost my ID, that's why I'm seeking his face. There's no reservation when I'm pleading his case, so the decision is clear. There's no need for mistakes. I don't hide a thing. I'm a Christian rap artist taking over the family business to finish what he started. So I'm the proof that a lie can convert to the truth. Rep the shame, be the same. Going out, be on top. You got the power that will change the world. We gon' sing, we gon' shout, we gon' dance. dance, we on top, we don't hide. Life we have the power that will change the world.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, now I'ma say what I'ma say. You could broadcast my faith, though, go put it on display. Place a newspaper ad with a full page spread. Tell him Jesus is alive, he was just playing dead. And I keep his word right in my mouth, so when I spit lyrics, only his words will come out. A house on the hill that cannot be hid. He's so marvelous, I called MTV Cribs.
Oh, man.
People wanna clown and they stare like they didn't ask Deacon to lift their mom up in prayer. People wanna holler out faith. When they come to public worship, they be hiding their face. People wanna bark out orders to other people's children, but don't raise their daughters. The other hip hop that will allow free speech, so we speak with a shout that the world be reached. The shame be the same. Going out, be on top. You got the power that will change the world. We gon' sing, we gon' shout, we gon' dance, we on top. We don't hide life we got. We have the power that will change the world.
We gon' change the world.
Many people gotta change in our churches. They hear the word rap and assume it's full of curses. I spit verses for the lost and converted. Glued to the pews, reach a verdict before you even like heard it. Treat us like we're freaks in a circus. Give me some grace so I can solve this. I'm thinking out of the box while you're living in the square. Either scared of what you hear or you're really gonna wear. At the power that we're using, minister to sinners through the industry of music. We may be called to stand alone in defiance, slinging our hands, swinging a rock full of science. Just like David in a world full of giants, defying the odds, building a beat model alliance. Open up your mouth, shout it out loud. We're gonna change it from the inside out.
The shame be the same. Going out, be on top. You got the power that will change the world. We gon' sing, we gon' shout, we gon' dance, we on top. We don't hide life we got. We have the power that will change the world.
We gon' change the world.
Stick around. We're officially starting in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. If you have hit the like, thank you so much. Please consider sharing. We got 2.5 minutes and we're going to get started. Got a packed full of information stuff. So we're getting started in 2.5 minutes. Stick around. You just got to get in. And what I like to say is get in and drive like a fast car. It looks like it's going slow when it's just sitting there, but when you get in, the wow factor hits you. It is simple. It is easily accessed. It is simple to understand and simple to earn income. You can use this income that you receive to purchase things or cash out to dollars. This token is an asset and utility token. No more useless tokens and coins. Because there are so many out there, that's what people have a hard time understanding is who can they go to? Where can they trust? And what coin and token is the best for them? This is definitely the one. What good are your tokens or your coins that you can't use to buy your day-to-day items?
Well, hello. It is Monday, and I've got Mr. NPC here. We're back on a Monday. Welcome, sir.
Why, hello, and thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you for taking the time. We usually like to go on Saturdays, but I was up looking for Bigfoot in the mountains. And I want to tell you that...
We didn't find him,
no,
apparently.
did not.
Or you wouldn't be here to tell the tale.
Didn't think I would. What I try to tell people, what I believe, is that if you want to find Bigfoot, badly enough, you'll find him. If you want to reach out to aliens and meet them, you will. And if you want to find ghosts, you'll find them. So if you want to find these things, you'll find them. But I think it's the same old lie, same thing to try to distract you from the truth of Yahuwah, our Savior, Yahusha. So I wasn't expecting to find Bigfoot. And I do think that there's some interesting things going on. I will have the footage up. It's quite a bit of pretty fun footage. We had a good time. I really enjoyed hanging out with Duke from World Bigfoot Radio and his buddy Mike, who goes on many adventures with him for several years now. And they don't take you on trails, guys. Like, we were going off trails. It was much harder than I expected it. For some reason, I guess I assumed that you're just going to drive up and see stuff and go, oh, cool, there it is, or maybe off the trail.
You're going to be a tourist in his domain. What are you thinking?
I don't know what I was thinking. But I guess I don't know that I really realized that I assumed that until I got there and scratched my legs up so bad that, like I said, I think I jumped to a rock and miscalculated and got an abrasion on my calf, and I stepped over a log and didn't notice the big twig sticking out from it that scraped up my thigh. Things like that, all part of the territory, all part of the experience. It was very fun, and I will get that footage up this week. Before I went up into the mountain range, 2 hours from any service, I went and looked at buses in Missoula, and I picked one, and I'm going to pick it up this week, God willing. So, very exciting.
Missoula. I thought it was Tuscaloosa. It was Missoula. How could I get the two mixed up?
I don't know where Tuscaloosa is.
They're so different sounding. I don't know, but that's what I thought.
Well, I can maybe pull up a picture of the bus. There it is. So, if you can see the screen, this is the bus I've chosen. It is a diesel engine. The engine is in the back. Yeah. It is a 2006. Let's see, I've got all the specs here. It's worth hearing about. Oops, where am I?
Can't you run a diesel off of oil, like canola oil and stuff?
Boy, I'd like to learn about. I'll be learning about that.
You could convert that thing to run on McDonald's refuse.
Well,
there's a McDonald's everywhere.
I'm going to look into that. This is a 2006 ICRE. It's got a DT466 engine. It's got good tires. It's 38 feet long, 78 inches tall inside, and 89,000 miles on it. So it's got a lot of room for everything I need. And I like that it's got the rear engine. I've been talking to people about that being the option, a good option.
Pushing rather than pulling.
Yeah. And most people who are doing what I'm doing agree that this is a good choice. So I've made that choice. I'm getting it for $8,500, and that came down from $10,000. That was very
That's
excited.
Really good for that low amount of miles. So that's good.
And this is a place that they make sure these buses are ready to go back on the road. It is a bus dealership. So as you can see in the top picture, there's a bus on the left and a bus on the right. So this is a bus dealership. They don't just have some buses lying around.
So you're dealing with a reputable realtor.
And they have a service truck that, if you need them, they will go all over the state. Now, that's not an emergency 911 visit. Like, they're not going to come, oh, I've got a flat tire, or, oh, the engine's broken down, I'm on the road now. They won't be able to make it right then and there, but it's something they can come around and help with. But by the time I'm traveling in this, I'm going to make sure, like, it's travel ready, locks on the doors. And as you can see, possibly, if you can see on the side, there are handicapped doors on both sides. And so I can do lots of things with 2 doors on the sides and 1 on the front. I can make it kind of a way to have an airway through there, where you just open up the doors and admit air through it. So, but anyway, I've got lots of ideas that I'll get on top of, and I'm sure if people want to share, if people are like, gee, Erin, I have a lot I want to say about that, feel free. I'd be interested in people's ideas for bus renovations. Real quick on the...
Well,
oh, go ahead.
I would just like to say, it sounds like they run a fine bus business. That was a joke. I didn't want to let it too much time go by. Busness. It sounds better when you type it out. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wanted to mention in the Discord server that I have a raffle up, and I know I haven't done a raffle in a while, so I have one up. It is for a Spider-Man 2017 first day issue Homecoming. It is what's called a PR70D cam. That means it is a proof, and it's got depth to it. It's 3D, and it's cameo. So it is in perfect condition. It is vacuum sealed. It's got the card with it that shows the mintage and all the specs that you'd ever want. And there are 8 spots left, $25 a spot. This is easily selling for $250. So you're getting, if you pay $25 a spot and you win, you just got an awesome deal on this. So I'm going to try to pick up the pace and do more raffles. I know I haven't been good about that, but I will get back to that. Okay, I had a couple more things I wanted to mention before NPC gets started on his brilliant discussion. Also, if anyone wants to help, if anyone's going to stick this out, I am going to try to write down times, like timestamps. We don't always change a subject a lot, but at least you can see right now in the first 20 minutes here, I'm talking about. Oh boy, I forgot to take the picture of the bus down. Hold on, I better pull up Discord again and show that coin. Yeah. So anyway, as we change subjects, you can see like I'm about 20 minutes in or something. 15 minutes in, something like that. 17 minutes in. So we might try to timestamp change of discussion. So if people want to skip to a particular topic, because we do sometimes go as long as 3 hours, then we can have that option available. If anyone is interested in helping with that, that would be really awesome. But I will also try to keep track. So back to this, I wanted to talk about the cyber polygon, whatever. Oh no! First, I want to talk about the governor's office. So I got to try to play this for you guys to where you can hear it. Let me go. I'll turn it up, and you should be able to hear what this guy says. So this is very short.
Hurricane season is here, and the time to prepare is now. In Louisiana, we know what hurricanes can do to our communities and the importance of having an emergency plan and taking the steps to ready yourselves, your family, and your community.
You can take simple steps to prepare for hurricanes, including getting a COVID-19 vaccine and building a ready kit with items and documents you need in case you need to evacuate.
That's all you need to hear. If you want to get ready for a hurricane, you can get a COVID-19 vaccine. So I looked up this particular...
If you want to save the world,
get
your vaccine.
Get your vaccine. I looked up this guy's office, and the front desk number is right here. You should be able to see it on the screen. I called them. I said, I'd like to know why this governor, whatever his name was, I said his name correctly, but I said, well, I want to know why this guy is advocating that we would get a COVID-19 vaccination to help prepare for a hurricane. And they said, oh, please hold. And they sent me to the constituent helpline that you see there. And when I talked to them on the constituent helpline, I said, I'd like to know why this governor is advocating that we need a COVID-19 vaccination in order to prepare for a hurricane. And she said, oh, I don't think that's what he really said. And I said, that's exactly what he said. I have it right in front of me, the video right in front of me. I said, don't you think you should be ashamed that he was saying that? And I was surprised that they weren't getting lots of phone calls, because it sounded like it was the first she'd heard of it, because she was kind of confused at first. And I was like, how are people not calling and saying into this guy's office?
They didn't get the memo yet.
Yeah, I guess not, but I must have been the first one. But I recommend calling any of these kinds of situations, whether it's your governor or not. Why on earth would you advocate a COVID-19 vaccine to protect you from hurricanes? It makes no sense, and we should call him out. Not my governor, but it doesn't matter. If you ask me, I think that is preposterous. I don't even know how they kept a straight face on saying any of that. So I wanted to show you guys that. And then I wanted to show you guys there is something called Cyber Polygon that is some kind of exercise like Event 201. I guess it goes on every year. I'm going to drop the link for this Klaus Schwab thing. I know you don't want to hear what he has to say, but it's not a bad idea to go at least hit
We should definitely hear what he has to say, because this is the architect of doom.
We should. I agree. I think I was just gonna.
The shape of a conspiracy.
Tiresome because these guys are such disgusting people. But yes, you should hear what he has to say about this. One thing they do say about cyber attack is that it's inevitable, and yet they're spending billions of dollars on cybersecurity. And so I find that pretty interesting. And if we're inevitably going to be hacked, our grid's going to be hacked, why would we even bother spending all this money on cybersecurity? They say it's inevitable. So Klaus Schwab says it's going to be far worse than anything we've seen with COVID-19. So that's his scare tactic. I think that's all I was going to share about that. Please join the Discord if you have not. I will share a link because this is where we have a lot of these discussions. We are now and have now a channel for the Solomon Report. So if you're like, oh, I didn't catch those articles in the live chat, then you can come here to the Discord and get them. You can choose to chat with us, or you can be what's called a lurker and just hang out and check everything out. But I suggest help us with our research if you want to, or just come and pick up what we're talking about. Also, it's a community of friends that when things like this buzz occur, I'm going to come around and meet some people in real life if they're willing to meet in real life. And I know a lot of people will be. Also, we talk about things like cities of refuge and what we're going to do if we have to run for the hills and can come together. Maybe even have a place where we can build homes together. I don't know how much time we have. I certainly pray for more time all the time, but we're not out of time yet. But we're just getting prepared and staying prepared, and we're going to continue working. So join the Discord and be a part of that community, because it's not just people chit-chatting and dropping research. It's a group of friends, and it really matters to us to know that that's what we have there. Okay, so back to you.
Oh, Erin, forever the optimist. I think yes, we're definitely in the apocalypse, and I don't think we have that much more time personally. But that's the nice balance. I want to mention that I think it could very well be this year. I think they're going to try and go for it during this cyber pandemic, because everything's starting to converge. They got the economy teetering. We got the lockdowns of the you-know-what. Then we got the cyber pandemic now lurking. So here's what I predict. I think that there are going to be a rash of, sure, they're attacking corporations right now. So we might see like 5'9" Mr. Robot style things. But what I think will start happening is identity theft's going to start to skyrocket. And then people got to care. Right now it's corporations. They don't care. Once people start getting hacked, they got to drive the need for the chip. And so the chip will be how they try to solve everything. Because first it was the vaccination, and people kept saying, oh, it's not the mark of the beast, because they think it's going to be the chip, right? Well, I think it'll be both. And so I think that we're finally going to see the push, and then that's when the dark winter, as it were, kind of takes form, because that's Nimrod's birthday. And so we'll be talking about the shepherd, the worthless shepherd, the new shepherd, and they're kind of telegraphing this stuff right now. So I think that with the coronation vibes of the coronavirus, if you will, I think that they're really hoping to crown their giant king. So tonight we'll talk about Inanna and Nimrod and Demuzi and Odin and some of these other false shepherd types, so that we can try and recognize them by their fruits. And some of these folks, like Branson, what is his name? Richard Branson. He just got back from his trip to try and go into space or whatever, be like the first civilian, right?
On an airplane, basically, yeah.
Yeah, so that reminds me of the Isaiah.
By the way, just real quick on the hacking your personal information, leave your banks as much as possible. I've been telling you guys,
exactly.
You can do crypto, you can do precious metals, you can do one or both of those things while we still have the grid. The grid's going to go down. I used to say that too, but it's still up, and you can still utilize it.
Yeah, but yeah, anyway. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yep, leave your banks either way.
Yeah, because they're definitely not doing you any favors. I'd say all you really need to have in a bank's like up to 6 months to a year's worth of fiat, and then anything over that you want to probably be putting into real valuable things, like food and stuff like that. Anyway, here's that verse, Isaiah 14:13. I will climb up to the sky above the stars of the Elohim. I will set my throne. I will rule on the mountain of assembly, on the remote slopes of Zephon. Sorry, it said, you said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the mountain of assembly in the far north. So there's a couple different translations there. But that's what came to mind when I heard this Richard Branson story. So we'll talk a little bit about him. But Bezos, of course, is scheduled to do it on the 20th of this month. But Branson went ahead and tried to do it 9 days ahead of him. So, I think it's kind of interesting how these two guys are racing to both be the most bombastic, arrogant person and possibly fulfilling this prophecy. But anyway, I digress. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Bezos is called Blue Origin. Oh, would you like me to go ahead and share the screen?
I'm ready when you are. Yes.
Have that website up, actually. Give me just a second here. I'll choose the right one. Desktop. Hold on. I think it's... Bear with me. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I do this correctly.
We are doing just fine.
All right. This should have been the correct one. Is it showing anything yet?
It is all black. There it is.
Oh, well, it might be because it's a video. Oh, is it doing anything?
I'm seeing the video go, yeah. And I see the chat now.
Okay, well, I guess it just had to catch up. So right here's the the New Shepard vessel, and this is part of Bezos's Blue Origin craft that it will be launching later this month. So if you missed this flight, you'll be able to watch this one. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. So I digress. Let me get back to the beginning here. Just as a reminder of the Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, and modeled after this is the temple and how we're created. We're in the image of our Creator. And so we're in the time of this high summer point, Shavuot time. And so this is the thing associated with that time. As we go to the end of the year, we'll be reaching the leg portion. So again, with the Revelation 12:1 sign that occurred on September 23rd, 2017, this adds to that significance. And the reason we talk about that is because we're talking about the birthing. What was being birthed? Well, we're going to talk about that. So the tyrants get born. The body of Christ gets born. Different types of fruits. So I'm going to be looking here at daily Tehillim. That's praise in the Psalms. One of the habits I'm going to try and develop is reading from Psalms daily, because there's so many Psalms. It's a good source for reading praise every day. I try to make sure at least my first few words of the day are some type of prayerful words, at least. Okay, so let's go ahead and share this. Welcome, World Bigfoot Radio. I also saw that Bear was in the chat. Welcome, Bear. All right, so let's read chapter 18 here on the Psalms. For the conductor, by the servant of the Lord, by David, who chanted the words of this song to the Lord on the day of the Lord delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. What do you know, guys? I didn't even plan this, but later in this, somewhere right here, I got links on forests and I got also the word for an Israelite, and also forest again in 1 Samuel 22, where David flees from Saul. It's wonderful. Sorry, I got a little excited. So we'll be talking about that.
You should get excited,
right?
because when you get excited, it's exciting for other people too.
Well, it's just, I love it when I don't plan it and it happens like this. So here we are reading about it again. So, for the conductor by the servant of the Lord by David, who chanted the words of this song to the Lord on the day of the Lord, delivered him from the hand of all his enemies and from the hand of Saul. He said, I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my rescuer. My God is my strength, in whom I will take shelter, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold, the horn of his salvation. Now, this might be the shofar, or, could just represent one horn, because a lot of times when it doesn't say horns plural, horns singular. A lot of times the unicorn, one-horned wild ox, is associated with the Lord's being his animal, right? So that's an interesting thing here to read, the horn of salvation. Also note here how David is trusting in the Lord for the strength, just like he did with Goliath against the giant. Saul himself was who they wanted as a king, right? Because he looked like the giants. That's what Gary was telling us, right? He resembled the giants. So they wanted a king like all the other nations. So we're going to be talking about this Melek Tau character, the Peacock, and how this trend kind of relates, and how one of the fruits to look for to identify this figure is some pride, right? The giants were full of it. And so they went on their own strength, just like the Tuatha Danann, who also named things after themselves, much like Alexander the Great, etc. So let's use that lens when we're reading this, and it might illuminate some things like that. So again, the rock, like the Peniel. With praises I call upon the Lord, and I am saved from my enemies. For the pangs of death surround me. Again, this word pangs associated with, it is Odin, pangs associated with childbirth. And so the judgment of the Assyrian, he who leadeth into captivity, he comes every so often, right? There's 8 of them. For pangs of death surrounded me, and the torrents of evil people terrified me. Pangs of the grave encompassed me. Snares of death confronted me. In my distress, I called upon the Lord. I cried out to my God, and from his sanctuary he heard my voice, and my supplication before him reached his ears. He's got a sanctuary. He's got a space somewhere, right? The earth trembled and quaked. The foundations of the mountains shook. They trembled when his wrath flared. So we always show the earthquakes now. It's becoming a part of the routine, so got to pay attention to this stuff. After all, it's associated with the Lord's wrath, right? And so let's continue here. Smoke rose in his nostrils, devouring fire blazed from his mouth, and burning coals flamed forth from him. He inclined the heavens and descended. A thick cloud was beneath his feet. It sounded like the day of the Lord. That's what he's talking about. He rode on a cherubim and flew. He soared on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his concealment, his surroundings, his shelter of the dense clouds with their dark waters. Yeah. Out of the brightness before him, his clouds passed over with hailstones and fiery coals. The Lord thundered in heaven. The Most High gave forth his voice, hailstones and fiery coals. He set forth his arrows and scattered them, many lightnings, and confounded them. The channels of water became visible. The foundations of the world were exposed at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. He sent from heaven and took me. He brought me
out of surging waters. He rescued me from my fierce enemy and from my foes when they had become too strong for me. They confronted me on the day of my misfortune, but the Lord was my support. He brought me into spaciousness. He delivered me because he desires me. The Lord rewarded me in accordance with my righteousness. He repaid me according to the cleanliness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of the Lord and have not transgressed against my God. For all his laws are before me. I have not removed his statutes from me. I was perfect with him and have guarded myself from sin. The Lord repaid. This right here is reference to like a fortress, like it was saying up here, because he's a fortress, right? The Lord repaid me in accordance with my righteousness, according to my cleanliness of my hands before his eyes. With the kind-hearted you act kindly. With the upright man you act uprightly. With the pure you act purely. But the crooked you act cunningly. That's what I think is going on with the vaccine right now. For the destitute nation you save, but haughty eyes you humble. Indeed, you light my lamp. The Lord my God illuminates my darkness. For with you I run against a troop, and my God I scale a wall. We've read about the folks scaling the walls before. God's army is able to do that. The way of God is perfect. The word of the Lord is pure. He is a shield to all who take refuge in him. For who is God except the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? Amen. The rock. For God who girds me with strength and makes my path perfect. He makes my feet like deer's, or a hind. In some cases I've seen it call it a hind. And stands me firmly on my high places. He trains my hands for battle. My arms do bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your deliverance. Your right hand upheld me. Your humility made me great. You have widened my steps beneath me, and my knees have not faltered. I pursued my enemies and overtook them. I did not turn back until I destroyed them. I crushed them so that they were unable to rise. They are fallen beneath my feet. You have girded me with strength for battle. You have subdued my adversaries beneath me. You have made mine enemies turn their backs to me, and my foes I cut down. They cried out, but there was none to deliver them. To the Lord, but he did not answer them. I ground them as the dust before the wind. I poured them out like mud in the streets. You have rescued me from the quarrelsome ones of my people. You have made me the head of nations, a nation I did not know because subservient to me. As soon as they hear of me, they obey me. Strangers deny to me their disloyalty. Strangers wither away. They are terrified in their strongholds. The Lord lives. Blessed is my rock. Capitalized rock here. Exalted is the God of my deliverance. You are the God who executes retribution for me and subjugates nations under me. Who rescues me from mine enemies? Who exalts me above mine adversaries? Who delivers me from the man of violence? Therefore I will laud you, Lord, among the nations, and sing to your name, Hashem. He grants his king great salvations and bestows kindness upon his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. In Isaiah 11, we read about the branch who comes from David. And this is the Moshiach that they're hoping for will be a Davidic type ruler, a warrior. Now, it should be noted that all the death that he wrought, even though it was righteous in the Lord's eyes, because in a lot of cases it was these giants, he still had so much blood on his hands that he wasn't allowed to build the temple. And so that's why Solomon built the temple. He did, however, allow David to build the foundation. So in this, we read about, So, there is some talk about foundations in the text a little bit, but not much. But he was allowed to at least build the foundations. Is there interference? Something weird.
I'm muted. I think I should be. I checked all my microphones. So
it's not always there. It was just coming and going, so I didn't know what was causing it.
Yeah, I have been muting myself, I think. So if anyone else hears anything, certainly tell us in the chat, and I'll try to mute myself better.
No problem.
But, yeah, okay. Yeah, let us know.
But this was great. This is like a battle hymn almost, only it's post-battle. It's more like, hey, thanks for all those times you had my back on the battlefield. Because some of this language he's talking with, I pursued my enemies and overtook them. He's not being figurative. He's being literal. He killed lots and lots and lots of people. Anyway, we don't have to dwell on that. But it's good stuff. Oh, and I forgot to. Actually, I made a mistake here and went ahead and clicked the Tehillim. Well, that's fine. We'll just go with that. Normally, I'd do a page ahead of that, but I think I changed my mind and decided to just start doing Tehillim. So, okay.
I'm doing the timestamp so far. I may zone out at some point, but
okay. Well, this is all introductory stuff that's going to be every time anyway. Okay, so this is just a picture of the night sky. Just talks about the planets. A lot of them are visible right now. So it's a good night to go and look at the sky if you want to try and see some of the planets. A lot of these are going to be visible. Well, this one's now from Tuesday, but
AKA
some of
the
these
wandering stars.
Yes, and so I haven't got it put together yet, but I'm working on another thing that we'll talk about in the future that discusses how these are known as the unruly wanderers, which Odin is also known as the wanderer, I think, as well. So he could easily represent Saturn being lead of them or something like that, perhaps. So I'll see what we can put together on that. But yes, they are sometimes known as the wandering planets that deviated from their stations where they were put. And from what I've learned from listening to some rabbis, all of them were originally in Aries, I guess. But I don't know if they were all there or if that's just, but it had something to do with Aries. Kind of interesting. And then I guess after the fall, they began to, they're now in their respective places, but still move. Anyway, that could explain a lot of the doomsday clock, if it literally has to do with these, if these are actually angels, pretty interesting to think about. And I already shared the volcano stuff, so let's keep on trucking. This is the first news article we got, and it's kind of techie because we're talking about the shape of conspiracy, with the cyber polygon. So, if your girlfriend or wife wants to get one of these, maybe try to dissuade her. I don't know how trendy this is going to become because it's currently just in Dubai that I'm seeing stories about this, but I guess soon enough we'll probably start seeing that stuff here. So what they're doing is they're hiding microchips underneath a coat of nail polish so that they can get the same effects as the RFID chip. So if I can, I'll play this, but if there's, I'll mute it in case there's music.
I'll just say, I guess the only positive thing, if there was, I'm not saying there's a positive thing, but at least it's not permanent.
Yeah, and I understand that that's a kind of compromise there, but we both know that's not going to last. I mean, this is just a step in that direction. It'll become too inconvenient to go and get it done all the time. It's just kind of trendy right now, but nail polish.
Yeah, it's a way to, like you just said, it's a way to make people want it. It's trendy.
Or you'd have to get your nails put on with it embedded in the nail. That's probably going to come next. Which that's, just one step closer again to being in you. And I personally think if you've taken the vaccine, then it's already in you. Because what are the odds are pretty good, with Bill Gates releasing that patent of the internal cryptocurrency thing. It's just, I don't know, oddly coincidental that we'd be trying to put this in everybody right now. So I don't know. I like to look at the convergence of technology and kind of see where it's headed. And it kind of looks like this is headed in a very ominous direction. I even noticed how this is her ring finger. It's like she's literally wedding herself to the beast. Which I'm working on that show too. I didn't quite have everything. There was way too much information for tonight. So the next show we'll probably be talking about the marriage significance and revelations and how that relates to ancient Irish lore. And I think that the Book of Revelation will make a lot more sense with this lens. So anyway, we'll talk about that too, but it'll kind of dovetail with the end of this show. We'll end with Ishtar and Demuzi, and then it'll kind of be what we talk about next time. Anyway, I didn't want to linger on this. This is just something I wanted to share. And this is our most recent article I've got, but this is the 26th of June here. A friend of mine shared this today. And so a key witness in Assange case admits to lies and indictment. So this guy, who's actually 28 years old, but just because he happens to look youthful here, is that a 66? It is a 66.
That's interesting.
66.
Of course, why not? I can't
North.
possibly see what that says underneath.
Interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to get distracted. So this article discusses how that guy's actually 28 years old and he lied. It's Sigurdur Ingi Thordarson, and that he was recruited by U.S. authorities to build a case against Assange, but it's all fabricated, and he didn't even know the guy. They refer to this guy as a teenager, even though he's 28. And instead of saying Iceland, they call it NATO Country 1, etc. So it's like they went through a lot of efforts to obscure this guy's identity, build this case. So, this is just sad to see that Assange is still in captivity. I found the list of pardons that Trump issued, and among them were two rappers. One guy stole over $100 million from a life insurance firm, stuff like that. Just made me kind of sick. Like this guy here, he could have easily pardoned Assange, and instead pardoned all these people that were basically just friends of his, I guess, or what was his various reasons? I don't know.
Yet there's still a lot of crazy blind support for.
But he could have made a lot of headway with his supporters by doing that, because everybody that supports him would have supported that.
And did you see the CPAC 7 steps to? It's like basically 7 steps to Trump being back in office in days and not years. It just makes people. It just adds to the crazy that people already.
Well, they want to incite a civil war. You know that. I mean, it's all part of the plan, man. I don't trust Trump or Biden or any of them, because he started Operation Warp Speed, and he still wants to take credit for the vaccine. So, ye shall know them by their fruits. I don't trust them. So keep them away with the 10-foot pole. They're all tyrants.
So it was the U.S. that hired this guy to build a case against Assange, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's all dirty. So right. It makes sense why we haven't. But it's just, he's just another, it's a little bit different circumstances than like Epstein or McAfee. But, which, by the way, remind me, next week or the week after, we'll have to cover McAfee again when when the countdown ends. But you know, it's another similar case where they just go after these whistleblower types. And here's some more news on the cyber pandemic stuff. So out of Germany.
This does kind of relate to the polygon thing here.
Let's read a little bit about this. So German authorities thwarted a cyber attack on a data service provider used by federal agencies and pushed back on a report that broad assault targeted critical infrastructure and banks. The attempt was quickly dealt with, and the impact on service was, quote, very marginal. Interior Ministry spokesman Steve Alter told reporters on Wednesday, adding that it was likely criminally motivated. He was queried about the report by Bild newspaper, which cited unidentified intelligence sources. It's always unidentified intelligence sources, saying that a hacker group linked to the Kremlin had carried out an attack on German infrastructure and the country's banking system. Sounds like to me that if you don't play with cyber polygon, they just blame you. And
that's right. And in fact, they talk about that, how their banks are going to be hacked, and if you want to get into your bank account, blah, blah, which is another reason you need to leave your banks. Don't keep a lot of dollars in there.
I hadn't heard this name yet. Bild identified the group as, quote, Fancy Lazarus, after earlier referencing, quote, Fancy Bear. Oh, wait a second. Work phone's ringing. Oh. I told that person
where do they
that
come up with these
busy.
names?
Sorry, I just was making sure it wasn't important. Fancy Bear. Uh-oh. We got a bear in the chat. Is it a Russian bear? A Russian dancing bear?
That's another thing, is they always say these hacks come from Russia, but that doesn't mean they do just because the address shows that. But that's just how I think they're hacking themselves.
Sorry, I couldn't resist. So anyway, yeah, this clearly them doing it to themselves. It's like that scene in Fight Club when he's punching himself. That's kind of how I feel when I read these stories about the cyber attacks. It's like you guys are literally punching yourself. You're attacking yourself and blaming it on other people. It's really weird. Not really weird,
kind
actually,
of common,
because
I was going to say.
if they had to sit around and wait for it to happen, it would never happen.
It's kind of like the, chaos, order out of chaos thing. They're creating.
Yeah, only they're
problem
creating
to have a
both the
solution.
chaos and the order, yeah. Here's another story. So let's keep these names straight here. So we had, what was it, Lazy Lazarus, or what was the name of that?
It was
Lazy
something
Lazarus?
and something Bear, but I don't think it was Lazy.
It was it Lazy Lazarus? Anyway, Lazarus was the one. I hadn't heard that one yet. And this one's called TrickBot. So here we go, TrickBot and Lazarus. And last fall, on the eve of the elections, the U.S. Department of Defense tried to throttle a transitional cybercrime group, but the hackers have rebuilt much of their operations. It's become clear in the recent months that the gang is very much alive and well. I just had an epiphany, Erin. What if the Dominion voting machine thing? What if Trump taking back office is all just part of the cyber polygon BS, where they actually planned it all? Like they're going to be like, okay, Democrats, you hack. We're going to let you just hack the vote. Okay, you take it over, you win. We discover, oh my gosh, it can destabilize countries. We got to get on top of this, guys, because they're also pushing the voters registration stuff right now, right? Which is kind of ironic that the Democrats don't want people to get voter IDs, because they're all about, like, people voting, right? I think what it is, it would uncover the ruse that they really rigged the election. So it's like all these different things are converging. It's really interesting, because this is the second article we've just read now that talks about the election from 2016. And we know there was foul play in that. So I think that might have been on purpose, because, again, that just adds fuel to the Civil War fire. Sorry, I just had to get that thought out of my head, because this is interesting. And again, the Russia stuff, they revive that again. Just like Lazarus, they bring this back from the dead, this faux conspiracy. The Russian-speaking hacking group, sometimes referred to by the name of the malware it uses, TrickBot, has gone after millions of victims around the globe, stealing victims' banking credentials. See, right here.
Again, the banking.
Just like I was talking about, they were going to get everybody afraid to use banks and stuff. And
no, I don't think they're going to get them afraid to use banks. I think it's like what you said. It's going to be a situation of Mr. Robot, where they're going to say, well, because the banks are getting hacked, we need to do a crypto style that can't be hacked if we do this crypto style, and you're all going to have to do this, and we're going to save the economy that way because you can't get dollars out of the ATM. You
just reminded me. I think it's the World Health Organization. There's some type of blockchain thing. Blockchain. Sorry, I wish I didn't think ahead of time to get it. Give me just a minute here to pull it up, because you said something that triggered. Yeah, right here we go. All right. I can't believe this. This is so crazy. All right, because I only just heard this in passing, I hadn't looked into it yet. All right. So here's the next one. World Health Organization launches blockchain platform to fight COVID-19. So when they're going door to door, I think the information is going to all get uploaded to this blockchain they have for that. Like they keep saying, oh, it's not going to be a database of people or anything like that. Well, yeah. Anyway, the World Health Organization has partnered on March 28th with major blockchain and tech companies to launch a distributed ledger technology-based platform for sharing data concerning the coronavirus pandemic. The platform, MiPasa, is built on top of Hyperledger Fabric and seeks to enable, quote, early detection of COVID-19 carriers and infection hotspots. Alexa, am I infected? MiPasa has been launched in partnership with technology company IBM, computer from Oracle, enterprise blockchain platform Hasera, and IT corporation Microsoft. Man, this is so crazy. Well, folks, it is upon us. So, yeah, there's that. So that's a new one.
Just like you need a COVID-19 vaccine to help you from hurricanes, blockchain will save us from the virus as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot to even bring up the I just had a lot of stuff, but the Christ Redeemer statue, I shared some stuff in the Solomon report thing. Since you mentioned about the salvational aspects here, I just wanted to share that real quick. So let me grab it.
About God bless abortions?
No, the other one. They put a banner across the one down in Rio de Janeiro. They put a banner across it saying "Vaccines Save."
Oh yeah.
So I want to grab that one real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a light. Well, I've seen that for a while now. It's like a spotlight. Mm-hmm.
All right. Sorry, I didn't have that one prepared. Here it is. It's loading. Might have to hit the mute in case there's music. Don't want to repeat of the babe, Miss.
Right. Well, that's the first time that's really happened, though. So that was
and
good.
Speaking of which, I think that was related to the title. So we got to be careful about the titles from now on in that regard. And
could be.
And muting things. Perhaps that was part of it, was the music. But it happened to do it right when he closed the gate, and that was like the most important part, because at that point I'd said harpazo, and I noticed they cut out that very part. So I wanted to make a point of mentioning that in that babe clip, there's a part where the door latches. And so like, when it talks about the mercy door shutting, I think it's talking about the gate to the Sheepfoldgate is open right now, and we can go in. He's standing there calling us in, and if we don't make it in before that door shuts, it's going to get bad. for those that are left. And, there is indeed music. Sorry, I got to cut the music out. But as you can see right here, they lit up the Christ Redeemer statue, which is already an idol, so I'm not cool with it as it is. But you can see how it's just become a billboard for this filth. The vaccine is a chimera serum. So here's your GMO Jesus right there with arms wide open. No creed reference intended. But, you know, it's sickening to see what's happening in this world. And then, yes, you said there was another one about the abortions. So just to prove that there's a little bit of a trend here, look at these possessed people hailing. You do that in the rights, man. Like, what are these people? What are they doing? All right, hold on a second. There's another one. Yeah, this one's about the abortion stuff. So I'll show this real quick just because it's relevant to this. So remember, in the past, I've shared there's the articles about Boris Johnson referring to, oops, it opened up its own window, sorry. So in the past, I've shared the articles about Boris Johnson referring to the vaccine as salvation. Monsef Slaoui, the chief officer of Operation Warp Speed, referring to the vaccine as the cornerstone. I know I've talked about it several times, but we can do a more in-depth study about it in the future, where there's so many times in the Bible where it refers to Christ as the cornerstone and the chief cornerstone. And here we have a chief saying that the vaccine is the cornerstone, and they're, you know, saying that it's salvation, and then on the Christ statue they're even saying get vaccinated. And here's another one, which this one's obviously a mockery, a smaller version of the statue in the Ozarks. You know, they put a banner on it like this. So it's strange that it's just 1 foot shy of 66. Because even if they went 66, it would be, well, it would still be the same number of books in the Bible, so it wouldn't have even been like a bad thing necessarily. Soon, I mean, it's just kind of funny. But anyway, but this is still an idol. And just by having an idol, which is probably a reason why you shouldn't have an idol, because then it can be desecrated like that. And then, so, you know what I mean? So even if it were like accurately depicting Christ somehow, it would still be a sin to have it, because you weren't supposed to worship anything other than God. And so these images. So again, when we had like the last episode, we were talking about the giant and people taking selfies as the giant, and it becoming all these religious and historical characters throughout history. I mean, this right here is no different than that giant thing, only this one's in the fixed image of this. And remember that image, that word imago, is also the word used for an adult insect once it has its wings. So remember, you know, there's some type of insectoid quality about like the false images, and the image that will speak maybe have some insect quality. Anyway, I'm not even wasting my time reading this because I don't want to give these people any fame. They're trash. Obviously, I just wanted to show the connection there, that they're burning churches down. They're defaming Christ. They're trying to replace Christ. I mean, it's rampant. All right, sorry, I got off track. Get back up here. Okay, back on track. So let's go to this next article here. I just had a lot of content. Sorry, I tried my best to have everything themed. Okay, so get off here. All right, Fauci, which again is Italian. The Italian meaning of the name Fauci is sickle. So remember, if we're in the time of harvest, people, if every time you hear this guy's name, just think sickle. And if anybody ever mentions him, you'd be like, oh, you mean sickle?
You know,
Death too.
if we just referred to this guy as what it was, you know, things start to seem a little more clear. Instead of saying influenza, you can be like, oh, you mean influence of the giants? Yeah, I know about the sickle and the influence of the giants. Did you see how tall Trump's son was? I'm starting to get a little
Yes, that
suspicious.
was really, really
He
odd.
might be a bit of a giant
He's
himself.
like 3 feet over his mom. That's weird.
Anyway, I digress. No, not picking on him. I'm just saying he's tall, a little bit tall. Okay, so he's wanting to insist here there should be more COVID-19 vaccine mandates at the local level. As if our federal government wasn't tyrannical enough, he's insisting that local governments become more tyrannical. Fauci said, Sickle said on Sunday that he believes there should be more mandates at the local level requiring people to get the vaccine. Quote, I know you've been very clear that the government isn't mandating vaccines, but do you think it's generally a good idea for businesses or schools to require vaccinations? End quote. Asked host Jake Tapper. Always the hardball questions. So I have been on this opinion, and I quote his response. I've been on this opinion, and I remain on that opinion that I do believe at the local level, Jake, there should be more mandates. There really should be. We're talking about life and death situation. We've lost 600,000 Americans already, and we're still losing more people. They've been 4 million deaths worldwide. This is serious business. I actually spoke to a funeral parlor director here in my town, and they told me that it's all BS, that they haven't seen a spike in the, no pun intended, they haven't seen a spike in deaths, and that and they think in some cases that the deaths have been reported erroneously, that it's just happenstance that somebody has it when they die, and then it automatically gets counted in this 4 million deaths. It's just people dying that happen to have a very highly communicable cold virus. It doesn't mean it killed them.
We don't have any more deaths really this
I
year
would like,
than any
yes,
other
exactly.
year.
Compare this to the number of deaths every other year, and you'll find a strange coincidence. It's about the same. So
plus, CNN
suspect.
is pushing mandates while Fox News pretends not to be, but yet they acknowledge that they think it's real. They say, and they even had a doctor on that said, so they said, but what about people who've actually had it? They already have the antibodies, again implying that they can even isolate this, which they never have. So they're implying that it's real on faux news. So it's coming from all sides that this is real, and even that doctor goes, yeah, that's right, and they may only need one shot. And so they've got a doctor on faux news saying that you should still maybe get one of the vaccinations even if you've had it, but not to force it, and it should be a conversation with you and your doctor. So they're playing the same game. They're acting like it's real. They're acting like the vaccinations aren't dangerous, and but they're also pretending to act like you should have the choice to get one or not. And they're all on the same side, two wings, same bird.
You know, I just had a little bit of an epiphany here. There's a card in the Illuminati. Yep, there it is. In the Illuminati card game, there's a card called Jake Day. I bet you that's Jake Tapper. Yeah, Illuminati shill. It's going to be part of a false flag attack. So look at this. Jake Day. Man, I wonder what this was talking about. And then, boom, baby. Here it is. So play this card at any time. It requires action by weird groups with a total power equal to the resistance of the target group, doubled if the group is currently straight. Maybe it's a gay hate crime thing? What? Okay, if it is controlled by a rival, add bonuses for the closeness to the Illuminati. Alternatively, one Illuminati action will do the job. The target group becomes permanently weird if it was straight.
Maybe straight as in not weird.
Weird and straighter. Okay, thank you for helping me. That alignment is lost. Keep this card with the link to the target. So, yeah, kind of weird, huh? So, what is this character? It says nuts here. Is this Mr. Peanut? But I wonder what this is. That might be kind of like a clue as to what it is. It's wearing a cowboy hat. And it has a striped
The
shirt.
red and
Anyway,
the blue. The red and the blue.
don't want to dwell on that, but that's just something I saw watching another channel last night, and they're talking about this Jake Day card, and then here we're reading about Jake Tapper, and it just hit me all of a sudden. I was like, oh, it's that stooge. So that kind of does look like him. Isn't that the guy that claimed he beat coronavirus by like working out his pecs with a 100-pound dumbbell or something like that?
Gosh, probably.
Oh, sorry, I can't even.
Disturbing.
It's probably skipping leg day though. Okay, so here we go. Here's the next link to West Nile. What do you guys know about the Bill Gates? What is it? The mosquitoes? Are they down there in Florida or Louisiana?
I believe they were released in Florida.
Keep your eyes out for that. It's definitely mosquito season. So this is a Jen Psaki announcement that Biden will support the local vaccine mandates. So what we were just talking about with Fauci. Here's the circle back Psaki saying, "I got your back. Even if I got to circle back, I got your back." Fauci,
good one.
sickle. And well, let's just hear her in her own words.
Does President Biden agree with Dr. Fauci that at the local level there should be more vaccine mandates?
Well, I don't have the full context of Dr. Fauci's comments in front of me, but I will say that.
I do have it.
Oh, go ahead. Let's hear it.
By all means.
He said, "I've been of this opinion, and I remain of that opinion, that I do believe at the local level, there should be more mandates. There really should be. We're talking about a life and death situation."
Give me just a second. Let me let it buffer just a tad. He's quoting Jake in his interview.
We've lost 600,000 Americans already, and we're still losing more people.
Well, I would say first from the federal government. If I remember the context of the question, it was about federal mandates. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a decision.
Sorry, I didn't realize that.
That's not that is not our intention from the federal government. There will be decisions made by private sector entities, by universities, by educational institutions, and even perhaps by local leaders, should they decide that is how to keep their community safe. If they decide to make that decision, we certainly support them in that step.
The president said on March 11th, "My message to you is this: listen to Dr. Fauci." Is he now saying don't listen to Dr. Fauci? He doesn't agree?
Welcome back. I would say that what Dr. Fauci was conveying is that there will be decisions made by local leaders, just like there will be decisions made by business leaders, by institutional leaders, on how they can keep their communities safe, and we support their right to make those decisions.
Thank you. And then on Cuba, you're talking today about how some of these protests are inspired by people exhausted with the government. Why is it that yesterday the State Department was saying that this was all happening out of concern about rising COVID cases?
Well, I would say first that the protests were just happening yesterday. We're still assessing what is motivating and, of course, and driving all of the individuals who came to the streets. But we know that when we say exhaustion, the manner by which the people of Cuba are governed, that can cover a range of issues, whether it's economic suppression, media suppression, lack of access to health and medical support.
I can't believe how full of crap these people are.
Range of reasons
she should be
and
a politician.
voices we're hearing
She's
from
really
people on the
good at
ground who are
doublespeak.
protesting.
So when these protesters are yelling freedom and enough, there are people within the administration who think they're saying freedom from rising COVID cases.
Again, I would say that when people are out there in the streets protesting and complaining about the lack of access to economic prosperity, to the medical supplies they need, to a life they deserve to live, that can take on a range of meanings. There's a global pandemic right now. Most people in that country don't have access.
I didn't know there was a pandemic.
That's something we'd love to help with.
Does President Biden agree?
Oh, it's Rich. These people make it so easy. I mean, you don't have to try even. It's just funny on its face value. So one day after Dr. Sickle called for the mandates on a local level, the White House is stating that it will support municipalities who choose to enact them. So
she even says, I support their rights.
Yeah, they don't have a right. They're exercising their authority. That's simply all they're doing. Now, the next thing's a bit controversial. I urge you to share it far and wide. Let's go.
Let's ride this roller coaster.
You've probably seen this before if you're a die-hard researcher like myself. However, if you have not, look carefully. What do you see here?
I don't know. What is it?
COV-19 on a piece of electronics.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this before. Yeah, it's been a while, though.
Probably a lot of people have, but if you haven't, gotta understand, like, what is it about 5G and COVID-19? Man, there's a lot of conspiracy about it, but, like, this is, like, the thing that unites them.
Somebody's saying don't play that.
Oh, well, that could be why you can't even find it on YouTube. So I'm just going to share it for folks. There you go. See? It's so dangerous, you can't even play it. You can't even play it.
Don't play that. Don't do it.
Now, what is fascinating about this picture, it says?
Delta.
Yes, the Delta. Now, this is in Germany. So let's refresh. What does Delta mean?
Under the sun.
And so the name of the fourth letter of the Greek alphabet, equivalent to the D, or Dalet in Hebrew, which means door, which again, remember, door here, door frame also with Passover, which is where you put the lamb's blood. So the door is very important, especially when you think of the door, the house, and how that's like the door of the Sheepfoldgate, both associated with sheep, because you would take that lamb into your house for 3 days before you killed it too. So a lot of interesting symbolism here. Back to Delta. All right, so which was in the shape of a triangle, it says. The name is from the Phoenician Delet, which is also the, without the H here, Delet is Hebrew. Phoenician and Hebrew are related. Means tent door. Sense of triangular island or alluvial tract between the diverging branches of the mouth of a great river. Interesting that it would refer to branch of a river as well, because the delta, right? Because in Isaiah 11, this figure is referred to as the branch, but I always kind of thought it was like the branch of a tree, because it refers to the stump and a shoot and the branch, you know. But then also it's got this double word meaning here of this, because it also talks about the fruitfulness of trees being alongside rivers. It's kind of interesting, especially with the mouth symbolism here. We are in the year of the ox, 5781. So the aleph gives it the oxen mouth quality. Anyway, it is because Herodotus used it of the delta-shaped mouth of the Nile. It was so used in English from 1550s and applied to other river mouths or whatever shape. So just keep that in mind when you hear all this delta talk, that around the same time that this started is also when the door-to-door or delta-to-delta stuff started, right? So I don't find that as any kind of coincidence. Oh, man, I wanted to share this real quick. Yeah, so we got to play this. I don't want things to get irrelevant, so I don't think there's any music in this. Makes me mad that we get censored.
Luckily, it doesn't happen that often.
I'm Leanne from Red Pill Crew. I've had my vaccine. Today. Rosie, shine the light on me.
We showed the guy last time.
Shine it there.
This time we're showing a woman.
To that
Why
dog.
in the heck are people voluntarily getting vaccinated just to do this? I don't understand this.
What's happening? Come on, shine it on my hand. Oh my god.
I mean, to me, this person clearly knew what they were doing if they were going to get a black light that same day and check themselves.
What have they put? God.
Oh, and it lags out right when I need it.
Oh my god. What have they put in that vaccine?
That's not good.
Have the vaccine?
No.
Smart kid. Hopefully yeah,
Too bad
yikes.
the relative, whoever it is way less intelligent.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot, and it's happened quite a few times, I've noticed. And let me make sure I didn't lose another thing. Okay. There was another thing, but I don't know where it's at now. Okay, so I was mentioning the Sheepfoldgate, and I think I might have shared this article already last time. I wasn't sure, but this was a good one. So again, we can read about how Jesus is associated with the door, Dalet, and so again, we relate this to the Delta type thing. Your tent being the first tabernacle was a tent. It wasn't made of stone. So there's this symbolism of a spirit dwelling inside a tent. If you recall from the stories of Moses at the end of Deuteronomy, when Joshua begins, he's in a tent with Moses. They're talking to Yahweh, and Moses leaves, and then Joshua remains in the tent with the spirit of Yahweh. So this tent thing shouldn't be overlooked. I think this is very important because I think that they were literally trying to impersonate the Holy Spirit at this point, somehow, some way, maybe with the Internet of Things, maybe with the ubiquitous nature of the Internet. I think they can try and impersonate it somehow, but that's just going to be one of the things they try to do, of course. But anyway, let me read this because this goes right along with the theme of today's show, like the shepherd thing. So this is a sketch here. So kind of shows like a sheep enclosure. It's like a wall or a raised mound of earth in a circle, but there would be like a door here. Okay, so and it says here, the sketch contains a colored illustration of a sheepfold in ancient Israel. The sheepfold was a rock wall enclosure of loosely stacked stones, and this provided protection against, quote, thieves and robbers. So again, we're in the time of cancer. So stop calling it cancer, folks. Call it what it is. This is the time of the Sheepfoldgate, and we can praise God in a way that's really great and easy way to witness to people, is that you can relate it to them this way and say, hey, we're in the time of the Sheepfoldgate. And this is then the royal archway of heaven. This is at the top of the royal archway of heaven. It's at the top. So doesn't that kind of make sense then whenever Christ is telling us summer is nigh? He's making a reference to this. And because I'm an Aries, I realize this also, that to be born in Aries, you have to be conceived in July in the Sheepfoldgate. So lambs for the Sheepfoldgate in a sense. It's just kind of a weird thing that blew my mind. But so remember, this is not a crab, which is an unclean animal, first of all, but this is in fact the Sheepfoldgate this time of year. It's a good teaching tool. So let's continue here. The enclosure also provided protection from wolves and other animals of prey. The enclosure also contained the door of the sheepfold, Dalet, an opening for the sheep to come in and go out. It was at this opening, the shepherd would lie in order for a thief or wolf to come in, and he would have to climb over the shepherd at the door. The shepherd would also inspect each of the sheep as it passed under the rod at the door of the sheepfold.
In the morning, the shepherd would call his sheep, and they would exit the fold because they knew his voice. Okay, so I wanted to point out a couple things here, and that is that he stands at the door. So it's said that Christ is at the door, right? Well, now we know what kind of door we're talking about here. But remember, Passover was very symbolic of the door, having the lamb's blood on the door to guard you from death, the destroyer. So think about what we're going through right now. If indeed we're witnessing a tribulation type scenario and we have a destroyer of sorts visiting door to door, delta to delta, a plague of sorts even, maybe it's the lamb's blood that saves you, and you don't need the vaccine, right? So it's just funny to me how literal this seems to be. So in this beautiful, oh wait, here I skipped a verse on accident. John 10:1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same as a thief and a robber. So that's what he's talking about. If you climb up or enter some other way other than the door, if you don't enter honestly under the eye of the shepherd, under the rod, then you're a robber and a thief, he says. Okay, in this beautiful figure, reference is made to a place of shelter for the sheep where they might repose, sleep at night, and be safe from the attacks of wild beasts. The modern sheepfolds of Syria, which no doubt resemble those of ancient times, are low, flat opening into a court. This is much like the temple also, in a sense, which is surrounded by a stone wall, protected on top by a layer of thorns. That is very interesting. I did not know that.
Yep, there's
And
where the
Christ
thorns
was
make more sense.
meow. Anyway, a doorway carefully guarded forms the entrance. Now, also in the Masonic Lodge, there is a figure. One of the officers is the Tyler, and that's the person that guards the door. He also protects from cowens and eavesdroppers, it says. So it's very much that same symbolism in a sense. Sheepfolds are referred to in a number of passages. Also, the 33rd vertebrae leading up to your skull, that could be seen as the sheep gate, your skull being the sheep gate as well, by the way. A simple improvised sheepfold, such is sometimes made by the shepherd when he is a distance from his home, or especially when he may be in the territory of mountains. It is a temporary affair that can be taken down easily when it comes time to move on to another location. So it's also temporary. That's very interesting. So he goes to prepare us a place, right? Well, I've always thought that was maybe the mansions that he's talking about, but maybe he's building us a sheepfoldgate to protect us temporarily. That's just, this is pretty interesting. A fence is built of tangled thorn bushes or rude bowers. This is all the protection that is needed, as the shepherds often sleep with their flocks when the weather permits. Ezekiel mentions such a sheepfold when he predicts the future of Israel. Quote, I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. Ezekiel 34:14. Also, sleeping with the sheep there in the enclosure is symbolic also of being wed to the body of Christ. So with Christ being the shepherd, we being the sheep, we're under his protection, just like a husband and wife in that sense. Okay, here it continues. More permanent sheepfolds. Such shelters are usually built by the shepherd in a valley, or else on the sunny side of a hill where there is protection from cold winds. This fold is a low building with arches in front of it and a wall forming an outdoor enclosure joining the building. When the weather is mild, the sheep and goats are allowed to be in the enclosure during the night. But if the weather is stormy or the evenings are cold, then the flock is shut up in the interior part of the fold with its protection of roof and walls. The walls of the enclosure are about 3 feet wide at the bottom and become narrower at the top. They are from 4 to 6 feet high. Large stones are used in constructing the outsides of the wall, and they are also placed on top, and then the center is filled with smaller pieces of stone, of which there is much in the land. Sharp thorns, bushes, and on top of this wall will protect the sheep from wild animals or robbers. There is a gate guarded by a watchman. Egregorio. Jesus made reference to a familiar sheepfold of Israel when he spoke those memorable words of his, quote, "He that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same as a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. To him the porter, watchman, openeth." And we've studied in the past that porter is another term relating to like a watcher of goods, but also related to Janus with the word portunus. So again, Janus is related to gates and doors and stuff like that. So very, very interesting. I didn't realize how the two connected until just now. So here we have porter at the gate, but it's in reference to the Sheepfoldgate. That's where these two things kind of come together. Large number of sheep in Palestine. From the days of Abraham down to modern times, sheep have abounded in the Holy Land, the Arabs of the Bible lands, and have largely been dependent through the centuries upon sheep for their living. The Jews of Bible times were the first shepherds and then farmers, but never abandoned entirely their shepherd life. The large number of sheep in the land can be understood when it is realized that Job had 14,000 sheep. What? 14,000 sheep. Man.
And he would
Thought I read that incorrectly at first.
He would leave all of them for the lost one.
And that King Solomon at the temple's dedication sacrificed 120,000 sheep. That's at the dedication, the Hanukkah. 120,000 sheep. Whew. Fat-tailed sheep, the variety mostly in use. The fat tail provides reserve strength for the sheep, much like the hump does of a camel. I did not know that either. There is energy in the tail. There is energy in the tail, folks. When the sheep is butchered, the fatty tail is quite valuable. People will buy the tail or part of it and use it for frying. That is a variety of sheep was in use in ancient times, as seen by reference in the Pentateuch, the five first books of the Bible. To the fat tail of the sheep, also thou shalt take of the ram and the fat of the rump and the fat that covereth the innards. Exodus 29:22. Again, quote, and the fat that covereth the innards and all the fat that is upon the innards in Leviticus 3:9. Intimate knowledge of the sheep. The shepherd is, that's weird. Sorry, the grammar of this article is not always that great, so it's not just me. Intimate knowledge of the sheep, period. The shepherd is deeply interested in every single one of his flock. Some of them may be given pet names because of incidences connected to them. So that's kind of interesting how God sometimes changes our name, right? They are usually counted. I forgot to mention too, further up here, where they're counting the sheep under the rod. There's the story in the Odyssey of Odysseus and his men being holed up in a cave with the Cyclops. And he counts his sheep as they go out. But what they do is they put sheep's wool over top of themselves to sneak out. Some of them bind themselves to sheep. Some of them do that too. But like it was kind of like, it depends on the story you get. But yeah, I've even seen some paintings depicting women. It was like there wasn't even any women involved. It was just as Odysseus and his men. But yeah, that's the story. They hung under the sheep, and so he would fill them as they went by, and he was feeling for the fat tail, as it were. Okay, so and they put his eye out. That's why he had to do that, because they just put his eye out with a cinder. Okay, so let's see here. Some of them may be given pet names. It says they are usually counted each evening as they enter the fold, but sometimes the shepherd dispenses with the counting, for he is able to feel the absence of any one of his sheep. Very interesting. With one sheep gone, something is felt to be missing from the appearance of the entire flock. One shepherd in the Lebanon district was asked if he always counted his sheep each evening. He replied in the negative, and then was asked how then he knew if all of his sheep were present. This was his reply, quote, "Master, if you were to put cloth over his eyes and bring me any sheep and only let me put hands on its face, I could tell you in a moment if it was mine or not." I don't know. Okay. When H.R.P. Dickinson visited the desert Arabs, he witnessed an event that revealed the amazing knowledge which some of them had of their sheep. One evening, shortly after dark, an Arab shepherd began to call out one by one the names of 51 mother sheep, and was able to pick out each one's lamb and restore it to its mothers to suckle. To do this in the light would be a feat for many shepherds, but this was done in complete darkness, and in the midst of the noise coming from the ewes crying for their lambs, and the lambs crying out for the mothers. But no Oriental shepherd ever had more intimate knowledge of his sheep than Jesus, our great shepherd, and those who belong to his flock. He once said of himself, quote, "I am the good shepherd." This is the part I was really getting to. "I am the good shepherd," he says, "and I know my sheep." John 10:14. We'll be talking about the idle shepherds, or the worthless shepherds, here in a minute. Handling and gathering the sheep. Several flocks, sometimes allowed to mix. More than one flock may be kept in the same fold, and often flocks are mixed while being watered at the well. And remember that lambs will only drink from still water, not moving water. For the time being, no attempt is made to separate them. Jacob saw such a mixture of flocks, quote, "Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it." Genesis 29:1-3. The wild animals of Israel today include wolves, panthers, hyenas, and jackals. The lion has not lived in the land since the days of the Crusaders. That's a shame. That's a real pity, honestly. The last bear was killed over half a century ago. David, as a shepherd lad, experiencing the coming of a lion or a bear against his flock, and by the Lord's help, he was able to slay both of them. Were they at the same time, or?
I don't think so.
Man, I was going to say, it's been like definitely a big feat. Okay, 1 Samuel 17:34-37, it discusses that. Amos tells of a shepherd attempting to rescue one of his flock from the lion's mouth, as the shepherd taketh out of the mouth of the lion 2 legs or a piece of an ear. Amos 3:12. One experienced Syrian shepherd is reported to have followed a hyena to his lair and compelled the animal to give up his prey. He won his victory over the wild beast by himself, howling in a characteristic fashion, striking on rocks with heavy staff, and flinging deadly stones with his slingshot. The sheep was then carried in his arms back to the fold. The faithful shepherd must be willing to risk his life for the sake of his flock, and perhaps give his life for them, as our good shepherd Jesus not only risked his life for us, he actually gave himself on our behalf. He said, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep." So John 10:11 rather. So ask yourself, when you're sitting in church, would that pastor give his life for you? Is he a good shepherd? And a good question to ask him is if he's pro-vaccine, if he's going to.
There you go.
That might tell you your answer right there. Ability to separate the sheep. So This is a big thing between the goats and the sheep, but also remember we were talking about figs the past several shows. We talk about the goat fig and the Smyrna fig, and how those differ. In Amos also, it was talking about Amos there a moment ago. Amos, you'll find the mentions of the figs, the 2 baskets of figs, summer figs to be particular. So this is the time of year we're talking about these fruit, baskets of fruit. Jeremiah talks about summer is over and where we're saved. Well, what do you mean? Saved for the tabernacle, right? So, you got to be fruitful to be gathered in the sheepfold, to be used as fruit, etc. Okay, so the ability to separate the sheep when it becomes necessary to separate several flocks of sheep. I keep thinking of the 12 tribes whenever I read this. One shepherd after another will stand up and call out, Tahu, Tahu, ooh, false antichrists, false shepherds. Interesting. Or a similar call of his own choosing, the sheep lift up their heads and after a general scramble began following each one to his own shepherd. Man, this is so... nature just, it helps. The whole Bible is just based on all these things. It's awesome. Okay. They are thoroughly familiar with their own shepherd's tone of voice. Strangers have often used the same call, but their attempts to get the sheep to follow them always fail. The word of Jesus are indeed true to Eastern shepherd life when he said, quote, the sheep follow him for they know his voice, and a stranger that they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. John 10:4-5. Here we read, separating goats from sheep. At certain times it becomes necessary to separate the goats from the sheep, although they may be cared for by the same shepherd for what that cares for the sheep. By the way, in some cases there's viruses that can be transmitted. I read a story about some type of goat virus or disease that was encroaching, I think, out west. Just a little bit of sidebar there. They do not graze well together, and so it becomes frequently necessary to keep them apart from the sheep while they are grazing. I can hear a cicada over top of my earphones. They're out here.
Yeah.
Okay, when visiting Israel, reported seeing a shepherd leading his flock of white sheep and black goats mingled together. When he turned into the valley, having led them across the plain of Sharon, he turned around and faced his flock. Quote, when a sheep came up, he tapped it with his long staff on the right side of the head, and it quickly moved off to the right. A goat he tapped on the other side, and it went to his left. This is the picture the Savior had in mind when he spoke the solemn words, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as the shepherd divided the sheep from the goats, and he shall set up the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. So imagine then, we got Christ at the door of the sheepfoldgate, and his sheep go into the sheepfoldgate, the goats go to the left. And so just imagine real quick if the vaccine itself is kind of that, we've already been told not to do it. We listen to his voice. We know. So I think that's kind of part of the test already. And we're going to see that. And then when that gate closes, like it did in Babe, that's the harpazo, done. When that gate closes, it's like, okay, my sheep are done for the night. It's showtime. Okay. And let's see if this is, let's go ahead and read this. An enclosure for flocks to rest together. Isaiah 13:20. Sheepfolds are mentioned. Wow, lots. Here, I'm just going to have to copy that. Oh, light's fading on me. I can't see my keyboard. Okay. It was prophesied of the cities of Ammon, Arar, and Judea that they would be folds or couching places for flocks. Among the pots of the authorized version is rightly, in the revised version, among the sheepfolds. That is pretty cool. So here's that link to about folds. let me just finish this, and then we'll be done on this part. So at night, the sheep are driven into the sheepfold. They are in a district where there is danger from robbers or wild beasts. Their folds are simply walled enclosures. On top of the wall is heaped many thorny brushwood as a future safeguard. Sometimes there's a covered hut in the center for the shepherd. Where there is no danger, the sheep are huddled together in the open until daylight while the shepherd watches over them. In the winter time, caves are sought after, just like with the Cyclops. Interesting. Oh, wow. Dark winter vibes. Chase all the sheep into a cave, and then little do they know their shepherd is a giant. Okay. The antiquity of the use of some of the caves for this purpose is indicated by the thick deposit of potassium nitrate formed from the decomposition of sheep dung. Well, you can't argue with that. So, pretty cool. So, speaking of shepherds, now you guys are going to kind of understand, like, why I'm getting these weird vibes from these rich, crazy people. So, just where are they trying to lead us? Well, we have stories of shepherds in the sky, in the night sky above us. Maybe we can look to them and to that blue origin for some clues. So to start things off, let's share this link here. Discover new horizons with our reusable launch vehicle. It's taking payloads to the stars. So
stars?
let's just.
What do they mean by that?
Oh, I added that. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I was being dramatic. I'm going to the About Blues section so we can learn a little more about this. We're committed to building a road to space so our children can build the future. A road to space. That sounds like the Bifrost Rainbow Bridge. Their vision. To benefit Earth, Blue Origin was founded by Jeff Bezos with the vision of enabling a future where millions of people are living and working in space to benefit Earth. In order to preserve Earth, Blue Origin believes that humanity will need to expand, explore, find new energy and material resources, and move industries that stress Earth into space. Blue is working on this today by developing partially and fully reusable launch vehicles that are safe, low cost, and serve the needs of all civil, commercial, and defense customers. Increase access to space through reusable rockets. Blue's efforts to fly astronauts to space on New Shepard. What's it called? New Shepard, you say. Produce reusable liquid rocket engines. Create a highly reusable orbital launch vehicle with New Glenn. They're trying to say that they named it after what's the Shepard guy? Alan Shepard and John Glenn. Like they're trying to pay homage to all the pioneers of space. But you can't fool me. I can see through your ruse. You just wanted to call it Shepard. All right. And return Americans to the surface of the moon, and this time to stay. And we'll add new chapters to the history of spaceflight and move us closer to fulfilling that founding vision. Everything we do follows our motto, gradatim ferociter, or step by step ferociously. Step by step to the what? Trying to be the most high. That sounds to me.
Well, yeah, of course, it's another Babylonian tower.
Yes,
type of thing.
exactly. The same attitude, the same spirit, if you will. Well, I don't want to read too much about this, but I will revisit it in a moment when we get to the Melek Tau section. And the reason for that is because if you look real closely, I'm going to point it out now so that I don't have to really come back to it, actually. I just want you to pay attention to the side of the rocket here. Look at the design when we get a chance. Maybe in this next frame. Yeah, right here. There's a big blue feather on the side of the rocket.
Is that a feather? Because it kind of looks like the whole bird to me.
It's just a feather. I've seen their logo somewhere else. I'm not sure where. Maybe if I scroll down on the page, oh yeah, here it is. So here you can see the quill. So it just kind of wraps around the craft. Yeah, and then here we go.
So happy. Yay, look at us. We're
so
pretending to travel to space.
And what's really cool about this is I've been doing some research on blue. So maybe that's another future episode. But what's strange about the color blue in some cases is it was never really used up until a certain point. It just kind of appeared. It was like the first synthetic pigment. The Egyptians started using it. And it was never really described, and nothing was ever described as being blue. So blue is kind of mysterious. It's very much associated with Yahweh as well. So, you know, the fact that they're calling it this, I mean, yeah, you could say they're talking about the sky or whatever, but the sky is not always blue. I think it's much deeper than that. And so when you look at some of the creatures in nature that are blue, it's oftentimes not a blue pigment that's causing the blue, but it's actually the structures on a butterfly wing or a feather. It's actually the structure itself is designed to capture all the other spectrums and reflect only blue back. So it's like an engineering feat, not a pigment. It's not just simply a pigment. So in some cases, that's how the blue and violet will behave in nature. So I think for them to, and that's also how the peacock feather works, which we'll be talking about the peacock. So I'm surprised, honestly surprised, that this is not a peacock feather. Or maybe it is, and I just can't see the back or the dark side of the Blue Origin moon vehicle.
Heaven 77 says the 17th tarot card.
Oh, okay, here we go.
Is a peacock.
Yes, and so Enter the Star has done a great video on that. I would encourage everybody to go visit his channel. Fantastic video on the Melek Tau, and so that's why I wanted to go ahead and mention it, because he did such a good job. He was able to relate a few things, so we'll share that. In fact, I think he's right. Yeah, he's next. So if you've noticed any peacock symbolism, I see it a lot of places. It could just be because of algorithms, or maybe I don't know. But I see it a lot of places. There's even a new, some type of new peacock video service. Like, you know how the QB thing kind of tried its thing and failed, and well, it's like a version of that, a Netflix type of provider. Anyway, sorry. Just something to keep your eyes out for. So it's said that
you haven't shared this link yet, by the way.
Oh, thank you for the reminder. And I have not been good about reminding myself about times, so this would be a good time to mention.
I'm writing them all down.
Melek Tau. That's very good. Thank you. Okay, so so the dude on Enter the Stars mentioned that there can be up to 170 feathers, which is kind of interesting, because that's if you really break that down mathematically, that's 10 17s. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Also, you could also be 10 Qs, right? So definitely something we should be paying attention to, because I think it's pretty substantial. We can definitely sink our teeth into this. I think that this kind of represents what they want to be the king of the nations, but it'll be the imposter type of spirit. Peacocks are also related to like pride and stuff. So I think this will be the left-hand path, goat, fig type, or idle shepherd, worthless shepherd type. So let me continue here. So Melek Tau, also spelled Melek Taus, translated in English as peacock angel, is one of the central figures of Yazidi religion. And I'm not real familiar with that, so let's just read that real quick. Hasidism, or Sharfadan, is a monotheistic ethnic religion that has roots in Western Iranic pre-Zoroastrian religion, directly derived from the Indo-Iranian tradition, although other less common and more outdated narratives link the religion to Zoroastrianism and even ancient Mesopotamian religions. Pretty old stuff. Okay, so here's that, even though I didn't bring that page up, if you want to read a little more about that. In Yazidi creation stories, God created the world and entrusted it to the care of 7 holy beings, perhaps the planets, often known as angels or Heft Sir, the 7 mysteries, preeminent of which is Melek Tau, the peacock angel. French anthropologist Zaim along with other scholars, believe that Melek Tau's may correspond to the ancient Mesopotamian divinity of Tammuz, which I think was last month on the Hebrew calendar. So there's a weeping associated with him. Oh, whoa, I didn't expect Tammuz to also be Demuzi. That's pretty cool, because that's Ishtar's husband. And I think that this is the figure. I don't want to give too much away, but maybe in next week's episode we're going to talk about how I think the character in Revelation is perhaps the 8th and final Demuzi, who is the husband of Ishtar. And yeah, pretty wild stuff. This is interesting.
Also, Rami Malek is the name of the actor for Mr. Robot, and it's spelled Malik.
Oh, yeah, Mr. King, huh? Mr. Peacock King. Okay, so the Yazidi considered Tammuz Melek an emanation of God and a good, benevolent angel and leader of the archangels. Well, Lucifer once was, who was entrusted to take care of the world after he passed a test and created the cosmos from the cosmic egg. Yazidis believe Tammuz Melek is not a source of evil or wickedness. They consider him to be the leader of the archangels, not a fallen or disgraced angel, but an emanation of God himself. The Yazidi believe that the founder of the reformer of the religion, Sheikh Abid ibn Musafir, was an incarnation of Melek Tau, rather. Melek Tau is sometimes translated as Melek Taus, Melek Taus, or Malik Taus. Melek was borrowed from Arabic, meaning king or angel. Taus is uncontroversially translated as peacock. In art and sculpture, Tammuz Melek is depicted as a peacock. However, peacocks are not native to the lands where Tammuz Melek is worshipped. Among early Christians, this peacock represented immortality because of the folk belief that the flesh does not decay after death. Consequently, peacock imagery adorns Yazidi shrines, gateways, graves, and houses of worship. The Book of Illumination, also known as the Book of Revelation, very interesting. We've got to share that. I have to look at that one later. Okay, which claims to be the words of Tammuz Melek himself, states that he allocates responsibilities, blessings, and misfortunes as he sees fit, and that he is not for the race of Adam. It is not for the race of Adam to question him. Sounds like he's a little bit contemptuous of humans. Okay. Sounds a lot like Lucifer. Yep. Sheikh Abdi and Musafir believed that the spirit of Tammuz Melek is the same as his own. That is, that he was an avatar of the archangel. He is believed to have said, I was, quote, I was present when Adam was living in paradise, and also when Nimrod threw Abraham in fire. This is, okay, so it's not the same dude, but this is so interesting. Okay, through Abraham in fire. I was present when God said to me, you are ruler and Lord on the earth. God, the compassionate, gave me 7 earths and the throne of heaven. I've also seen that Ariel is called the same thing right here. And oftentimes Aries is associated with Emperor. So I have been working on another episode of Ariel. So I would have to chance and say that this relates to Ariel also. Yazidi accounts of creation differ from those of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Yazidi people believe that God first created Taus Melek from his own illumination, and the other 6 archangels were created later. God ordered, this also seems like getting Demiurge vibes from this story. God ordered Taus Melek not to bow to other beings. Okay, this is definitely the Lucifer then, because that was his sin.
God,
because he didn't know that when he denied humans, they had the Holy Spirit in them. So in a sense, he denied God. So I guess that's where this happens. Okay, so then God created the other archangels and ordered them to bring him dust. It's saying here axe from the earth, so dust, axe and dust. There's a connection there. It's interesting. Also, the angel Abaddon, that some people relate to the book of Revelations, or angel Uriel, is often associated with the task of having brought God the material. I guess it had to be in a certain proportion, and I guess Uriel or Abaddon was the only one to bring back the appropriate amount. And so he was given some type of special connection to the humans. Anyway, and so in earth, dust and earth, to build the body of Adam, and then God gave life to Adam from his own breath and instructed all archangels to bow to Adam. The archangels disobeyed except for Taus Melek. In answer to God, Melek Tau replied, "How can I submit to another being? I am from your illumination, while Adam is made of dust." This is definitely Lucifer. This is word for word. Wow. Okay. Then God praised him and made him the leader of all angels and his deputy on earth. Hence, the Yazidis believe that Melek Tau is the representative of God on the face of the earth and comes down to the earth on the first Wednesday of Nisan, April. See, my intuition was telling me this had something to do with that time. So he literally said to manifest on earth during that time. That's really wild. Yazidis hold that God created Melek Tau on this day, the first Wednesday. This is also the day, you know where this gets its name, right? Wednesday.
Nope. Wedding?
Woden's Day, which is Odin. So my suspicion for a while has been that this birth refers to the birth of the tyrant. So I'm starting to see that if indeed Lucifer's tied to Wednesday, this is the day of Odin, the one-eyed, wisdom-seeking type god. I didn't know that Odin was tied to this, though, so that helps me understand now that that's the case. So this is really wild stuff. Yazidis hold that that they created Melek Tau on that day and celebrated as a New Year's Day. So this helps to explain why you got your new civil New Year in the fall and your ecclesiastical New Year in the spring. So this kind of helps explain this a little more. Yazidis argue that the order to bow to Adam was only a test for Melek Tau, since if God commands anything, then it must happen. So they're saying because he received his own edict from God, that was the basis for his decision. But yeah, I don't know. It's not in our words, so I can't believe that. In other words, God could have made him submit to Adam, but gave Talak Mal the choice. They believe that their respect and praise for Melek Tau is a way to acknowledge his majestic and sublime nature. It's his pride, actually. The peacock is associated with pride for that reason. This idea is called Zanista, knowledge of the sublime. This sheik observed the story of Melek Tau and believed in him. Alleged devil worship. This is the accusation leveled against it. Since the 16th century, some Muslims have accused Yazidis of devil worship due to the similarity between the Quranic story of Iblis. So it's not even just us. Like, they have it in their own thing. They're like, hey, wait. In fact, that's where you get the more full story is from the Quran. It's not so detailed in ours. In the account of the Melek Tau's refusal to bow to Adam, whereas Muslims revile Iblis for refusing to submit to God and bow to Adam, believing that his defiance caused him to fall from God's grace. Yazidis revere Melek Tau for loyalty towards God and believe that God commanded him as a test to be devoted to God alone. This narrative led to many misinterpretations, also made by the Western scholars who interpreted the Yazidi faith through their own cultural influences. Further accusations derived from the narratives attributed to Melek Tau, which were actually foreign to Yazidism, probably introduced by either Muslims in the 9th century or Christian missionaries in the 20th century. Accusations of devil worship fueled centuries of violent persecution, which has led Yazidi communities to concentrate in remote mountainous regions of northwestern Iraq. The Yazidi taboo against the Arabic word shaitan and on words containing the consonants S or sh, which again, that's relating to your two shins, like again, Christ's shins, the sh and s are the taught in the story of the shibboleth. So again, one's related to the right, one's related to the left, just like we were talking about earlier with the sheepfold. Anyway, I digress. And have been used to suggest a connection between Melek Tau and Iblis, although no evidence exists to suggest Yazidis worship Melek Tau as the same figure. The Yazidis' Black Book, written by Western Orientalists, directly identifies Melek Tau with Azazel or Azrael. Azrael is the angel of death, and Azazel is the leader of the Watchers, or one of them anyway. And that's the one that all sin is ascribed to, the scapegoat. So again, we come back to the goat motif. However, Yazidis identify Melek Tau with Gabriel. Well, that's interesting. In one Arabic manuscript, the name Gabriel is used in secondary reading instead of Melek Tau. It said that Gabriel is the one that came and spoke to Muhammad also, so that is entirely reasonable, I suppose. The title Peacock of Paradise was also applied to Gabriel among Islamic traditions. So there's another clue. So Gabriel's a little suspect. And wasn't he a fallen angel in the prophecy? Gabriel?
No, he
Christopher
was the
Walken.
protector. Oh, no. Yes. Sorry. I was thinking of, my gosh. There was another.
I mean, I know the legit
book
ones
that I was
probably,
thinking of when
but
you said that.
it's like in these movies they always depict him as a fallen angel for some reason.
Well, not in the book Hideaway. Hideaway is a good guy.
But pretty interesting read, wouldn't you agree? Pretty.
Oh yeah, very telling. Very telling of a lot of stuff that it shows what they being like people want to say God's not real, blah blah blah, but I'm like, this is what the powers that be believe, these things. Like you were saying with the demiurge and Lucifer, they believe these things very much so.
And that's why you know them by their fruit. So if they're edifying and glorifying these types of things, you know that they're giving energy to it and not ignorant of it, especially, then, that's something you should pay attention to. It's a spirit they're serving in a sense. Since we read in such great depth already about it, I'm not going to do it again, but I did want to provide a second link just in case it had anything interesting that I missed. But yeah, this is pretty interesting stuff. So let's move along. So, since we're talking about the dawn of creation and Melek Tau, I figured it was probably worthwhile to mention the whole premise of Purple Rain from the Prince album is actually talking about the purple dawn of creation. It's said by some that Saturn used to be our sun, and you know, and all this, and it used to be purple and everything on the earth.
Yeah,
and
I've gone down this rabbit hole before. It's very interesting.
so the thought is that when, you know, we were reading in Revelations and it's talking about all the stuff that's happening, and it's partly because Saturn, I guess, is coming back, and which it's been it has been in the news even over the past year, as it made its conjunction in December 21st, 2021 with Jupiter. And then since then it's kind of deviated from Jupiter, and so anyway, it makes its return, and it's done so, and it does that every 20 years. But anyway, it suggests that there was this purple-hued darkness all over the earth. So when the Lord's day, when he comes back or whatever, like maybe it does quite literally like turn the sky purple. And so the idea is that like the blue sky mixes with the red blood and it becomes purple. So the purple rain is actually like blood. But it's also a play on words, because the purple rain is like the rain. His authority is now absolute, and so like because of the great sin on earth, judgment's been leveled. But this only happens to everybody that's outside the Sheepfoldgate. So really interesting symbolism here, especially when you consider the fact that Saturn has the one eye at the South Pole, and Melek Tau is associated with Wednesday, which is also Woden's day. So Odin, which also means birth pangs. So we got this whole birthing element, travail, associated with the birth of a tyrant that maybe, you know, just I guess it's their job to to test humanity. And we've seen in some instances where this person thinks they're God. Antiochus Epiphanes, for instance, his name literally meant God manifest. So when this creature takes a human form, you know, it does these military campaigns and stuff. So maybe that's why wars traditionally start in the March-April time, is because that's when they say that this Peacock angel manifests on Earth happens to be in the time of Mars, right? And so it could also explain why Odin is so associated with war and the end of days, which is known as Ragnarok by some. And could also explain why Odin wants to gather as much information about prophecies as possible, because he knows that he can't prevent Ragnarok. So that's another interesting detail about Odin. So hoping that he could change the outcome, right? Finally realizing how important these humans really are to the Most High, and deciding that the only way to really win is to destroy us, right? So I think that's really what it comes down to, is that he just decides he's going to try and kill us all, so that God will have no choice but to just love him, right? I think it's going to be something like that. Really.
Well, I don't know if it's so much kill, but change our DNA.
Well, that's what I mean, like, so that he will have no choice, you know what I mean? Like, he has to love us all or destroy us all. But the trick is he's going to save some of us in the Sheepfoldgate and just destroy the rest. So that's the problem here, is that old Melek Tau, he's got selective hearing. He only wants to listen part of the time. Let's go to the next one here. Oh, this is an interesting article. Okay, so wow. Oh, come on. That link can't be that long. That link is seriously over 200 characters long. Okay, hold on a second.
It's a long link.
And here's the last part of it.
I wonder.
If it's that long, it's good. And actually, long links are usually bad news. But anyway, it's clearly okay. So Apocalypse. Anyway.
Oh, wow. Shooting stars.
So shooting stars are demons, disembodied Nephilim that are falling from the sky in exhaustion from trying to eavesdrop on heavenly deliberations in the firmament. That's the synopsis here. So as from the Testament of Solomon, which I have a copy of this, so I can verify the contents. I've read this before. As per the Deuterocanonical book, the Testament of Solomon, I would assume, I don't know what that word really means, but I think Deuteronomy means second law. Okay, so here it says, I therefore, having heard this, glorified the Lord God, and again I questioned the demons, saying, tell me how ye can ascend into heaven, being demons, and amidst the stars and holy angels intermingle. And he answered, how can you mingle with the flocks? Is what he's asking him. And he answered, just as things are fulfilled in heaven, so also on earth are fulfilled the types of all of them. For there are principalities, authorities, world rulers, and we demons fly about in the air, and we hear the voices of heavenly beings and survey all the powers. So just in this revealing sentence here, we got powers, authorities, principalities, world rulers. So this is just all about what Ephesians tells us about. And having no ground basis, having no ground on which to alight and rest, we lose our strength and fall off like leaves from trees. And men seeing us imagine that stars are falling from heaven, but it is not really so, O king. He's talking to Solomon here. O king, but we fall because our weakness, and because we have nowhere anything to lay hold of, and so we fall down like lightnings into the depths of night, and suddenly, and we set cities in flames and fire in the fields, and for the stars have firm foundations in the heavens like the sun and the moon.
There it is.
This is very interesting, folks. So don't be wishing on fallen stars, because they're from the words of these spirits when they're talking to Solomon. And I have no reason to believe that any of these spirits lied to him. I've read all of the text from when he had interactions. There were some that didn't want to talk to him or be very revealing or forthright, and he would have to compel them. And so a lot of them would have weaknesses, and he would have to do things to make them want to talk to him. So I would assume in this case we're getting the truth, because he would compel these demons if they were not willing to divulge the truth. And so we're getting a peek into the workings here of how the different layers to our Earth, whether it's flat or a sphere, it doesn't matter. The point to be made here is that there are layers to the authorities. And so, up in the air.
I think it matters whether it's flat or a sphere.
Well, not in this case, because it's saying here that stars are falling as angels. So, it doesn't matter if it's circle or flat, it's still happening the way they expect.
But I'm going to throw this in there because all the scriptures talk about is a description of an earth that was created for humans and the heavens around it with the firmament. Nowhere does it talk about a globe going through space at 666,000 miles an hour, or as they say. So.
Well, I didn't say that either.
Right. So I'm just pointing out that the firmament doesn't make sense around a sphere.
Well, I think that it all kind of makes up the same thing. Because see, in my mind, it's all, I think when you got out far enough, it's going to look like a sphere. But for all intents and purposes, it is flat for us. That's just how I feel about it.
It's definitely not a sphere.
But anyway, the point I'm making here is that when these stars fall, they're not stars. It's saying here that they're entities. So I think it makes good sense to consider the planets that we see. They are apparently also entities of some sort. If you could look at pictures of these planets and stars, the the images that are captured are really interesting. They scintillate and sparkle like gems. It's really quite marvelous. And I think it also kind of relates to an interesting phenomenon known as sonoluminescence. Let me see if I can spell that correctly. Sonoluminescence. Anyway, there's a term close to that. It's where they trap an air bubble using sound. They'll trap a bubble of air in like a tube, and then they'll keep hitting it with sound until the sound waves begin to like hit one another, and I guess eventually it'll start to compress and build up temperature, and it'll start to oscillate and move and look like these stars also do in space. So I think it's entirely possible that what we think of as space is probably just some type of water, fresh or salt, not sure which, but
that's exactly what the Bible says.
But yeah, that's basically how I think these stars, because it's talking here, for the stars have firm foundations in the heavens like the sun and the moon. So for that sonoluminescence to work, they can't be wandering around like the planets, right? So to wander from your firm foundation, it would be like a third of the planets that fell. So I think like over time, a third of them would fall, and it would just happen to include the 7 planets, as it were, I guess. But those 7, I think, are associated with the Melek Tau. It's quite remarkable. Anyway, so I didn't want to linger on this, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so this is forest. So we're talking about how David fled into the forest from Saul. Saul, who was like a giant himself, sought after David because he was the heir, right? So just like God has told us we'll be his heirs to the kingdom, right? And they thought by killing the shepherd, they could scatter the sheep. And so they killed the shepherd, the good shepherd who gave his life to those wolves. Well, let's read about this here. Forest. Now, when we're reading about this, we're going to segue into how that relates also to the forest here. This is a little more concise. Let me start with that one. And then into 1 Samuel 22. Okie dokie. So let me share that one. You're welcome, Kimberly, for whatever. Yes, NASA, I have heard about that meaning deceive. And in fact, look up the word COVID backwards is devok. And I think that's a Hebrew word also. I can't remember what it means, but look that up. I guess it would be that. Okay. So let's read this right here. Forest. Although Palestine has never been in historical times a woodland country, yet there can be no doubt that there was a bunch more wood formerly than there is at present, and the destruction of the forest was one of the chief causes of the present desolation. So they're relating desolation to the lack of trees here, okay? And so, yeah, they use the word ya'ar here to mean forest of dense wood. Remember, in the past, we've shown the word atesh as meaning the fat of the land would be where your thick trees would be. It also refers to your backbone, just like your dream. Remember, you hurt your backbone?
Yeah, I broke my back and was in my dream last night. I was supposed to go in for surgery, and I was in pain. Actually, I had a lot of pain in my dream. I was grateful to wake up with no pain.
This relates to that, man. Your trunk. Okay, so let me see. Thus, all the great primeval forests of Syria, the most extensive was the Transjordanic forest of Ephraim, which is probably the same as the wood of Ephrata, some part of the great forest of Gilead. It was in the forest that Absalom was slain by Joab. David withdrew into the forest of Hereth in the mountains of Judah to avoid the fury of Saul. 1 Samuel 22:5. See, we got that example right here. We read also of the forest of Bethel and of that which the Israelites passed under the pursuit of the Philistines in 1 Samuel 14:25, and the forest of the cedars of Lebanon. The house of the forest of Lebanon was probably Solomon's armory, and was so called because the wood of its many pillars came from Lebanon, and they had the appearance of a forest. Excuse me. Hebrews, Horish, denoting a thicket of trees.
Did I lose you somehow?
No, I had to call.
Oh, okay. It's like, oh, did I do something? All right, he's still here.
Sorry, I just when I drank that water, it went down the wrong pipe. Denoting a thicket of trees, underwood, jungle, bushes, or trees entangled, and therefore affording a safe hiding place, just like you'd put on top of a sheepfoldgate. The word is rendered forest only in 2 Chronicles 27:4, and is also rendered wood or the wood in the wilderness of Ziphah, in which David concealed himself, which lay southeast of Hebron. In Isaiah 17:19, this word is in the authorized version, rendered incorrectly as bow. Interesting. Okay, let me see if there's anything more to read here. Hebrew pardes, meaning an enclosed garden or plantation. Asaph is also called the keeper of the king's forest, and the same Hebrew word is used in Ecclesiastes 2:5, where it is rendered in the plural orchards. And a paradise. Remember, one of the Melek Tau things was the paradise of the Peacock paradise. The forest of the vintage, an accessible forest or strong forest, is probably a figurative allusion to Jerusalem, or the verse may simply point to the devastation of the region referred to. The forest is an image of unfruitfulness as contrasted with a cultivated field in Isaiah 29:32, Jeremiah 26, and Hosea 2. Isaiah 10:33 and 34 likens the Assyrian host under Sennacherib to the trees of some huge forest to be suddenly cut down by an unseen stroke. So also in Daniel it talks about the tree. So the tree that fools the nations and such. That again, the Melek Tau. So I think the Christmas tree honestly represents this huge tree, whereas Melek Tau is the star. Oh, see right there, star tarot card. The star at the top is the peacock. Yeah, representing with all his feathers, 170, all the nations of the world. Each eye representing like a principality or a spirit, because the angels were all watchers, right? Egregori. They're known to have eyes all over their wings and their body and stuff like that. So I think these eyes, all relating back to the peacock, who it's well established he was their leader, right? So yeah, Christmas tree, bad news, folks. Not only that, but that's the time of Nimrod's birthday. So this again relates back to the Nimrod Demuzi shepherd thing. And so when we've studied the feast days, we've learned that the feast days are 180 days, which correlates again to the feast days of the king and Esther, right? But those only occur during certain parts of the year. And so the parts of the year that there are no feasts, That's like the victory over death, right? So by comparison, we're in like totally opposite to where we're at right now in this time of year. Of course, I know it depends on where you're at on the earth, but still, the December 25th time seems to relate to the Nimrod. Man, this is fascinating. Anyway, we can get off this now and go to the next one that's about the forests. And I shared that one already. It's a lot of the same information, but it's actually just differently presented. But here we also learn about cities of forests. I didn't know about that one, so maybe the cities of refuge can relate to this. Let's read this one.
It would make sense if we're running to the hills.
Yeah, because that's exactly what David was doing from Saul, exactly. And I think it's this prototype also for like a rapture type scenario. It's what the Maccabees also did in the time of Hanukkah when Antiochus Epiphanes came upon them and killed everybody. They ran to the forests. And so, I played this out in my head a little bit. It seemed like, if they are going to go delta to delta, door to door, like they're doing now, if that inevitably leads to us having to flee the cities and go into the forests, that doesn't negate a rapture, because that could still take place, in which case then we would be raptured literally from the forests as fruit. So in my opinion, that could very well be kind of how it plays out, I guess, because the remnant isn't going to be sticking around in cities, you know what I mean? I don't see how that could work out.
I don't think they'll be able to.
So you would quite literally be among the trees as fruit. Okay. Well, anyway, this is a chunk here. So, but I did see some mentions of oak in here. Oak is the Tenebereth tree is associated with that as well. So anyway, this is probably a good read. I'll go ahead and share it again. But I don't want to be forever long, and so let's keep on moving. So the Strongs for this was about Israelite and how that related. I think it was to the trees. So I'll try to pay attention here and see if that sticks out. The word Odin. Oh, I remember now because I was doing Odin research. And Odin is travail or birth pang. Odin is Israelite. So I thought it was really interesting how similar
Can you share
those
that
words.
one more? Wait, no, I got it. No, you don't need to. I got it.
Awesome. So I found it interesting how the two of these are so similar. And then I got to thinking again, well, wait, what about the story of Jacob and Esau, right? And the word Jacob itself refers to heel catcher. And so the firstborn was this Esau character. So where I'm going with this is I think the Odin, because here we read about the connections of Odin to Esau. So Melek Tau, if you will, the serpent seed, if you will, this could help to explain why Yahweh hated Esau so much. Could be similar to why the Cain and Abel thing was a thing also. It never really talks about the devil having an influence in the womb of Jacob and Esau, but that I'm aware of. But it could definitely explain it. So the devil's plan would have been to be the firstborn, right? And get the inheritance and everything. Mm-hmm. So it does kind of make sense why God would not like him. And then he's red, also like Adam means red. So Esau's red like Adam. So it's almost like he was trying to be an impersonator of sorts, but because he was usurping or taking it in such a way, it helped me to better appreciate and understand why Jacob was, why the things he did to get the birthright were okay, I guess, in the end. But because it was sold to him, for instance. He wasn't killed or didn't set up his death or anything like that. He, got him to do it himself. So he tricked him in a sense. But But anyway, I still wanted to point that out real quick, and let's get back to this.
Timothy Albarino does a good explanation of that. Now, while I have major concern for some of his other beliefs, his book Birthright talks about that. So it's one of those books I say take what's good, which there's some good in it for sure, and I think his take on this is exactly what you're saying. He just gets much more into depth on it. So I do recommend Timothy Albarino's book for the parts that are good. There's just parts that not good. You just got to throw those away, but don't throw away all. Timothy Albarino does really good research. I just don't know what happened. It's very odd. I'll have to talk about it sometime. Maybe even pull up the book, but read it with a big grain of salt. Just take.
I know what you mean. How I feel when I listen to these rabbis. Like,
right.
You'll enjoy so much that you hear, and then it's like, then they'll want to go on a tirade about why they don't believe in Christ. And I'm like, you sounded great until you started that, and so it's funny. It's like the spirit in them can't resist. They have to, declare that kind of stuff. So that's why, you really just, the fruits are so effective. Just looking at what they either exalt themselves or they give it to some entity. I think at the lowest level, they're worshiping themselves. I don't think a lot of these folks even realize what's going on until they get to the higher level, and then they're like, oh, well, now you got to worship this entity, and you know what? You got to do these weird things that I like. So then they have to do the things, Well,
and
like the black eye and whatnot.
Right. And just to clarify what I mean about Timothy Albarino, I know he loves the Lord, so I'm not implying that he is a questionable.
Oh, sorry, I was talking about
I just wanted to make sure to clarify. He's not questionable when it comes to his faith. I don't believe that at all. I just think there's some truther stuff that he's just missing the point, or I don't know how he got there with all the research he's done. But anyway, it's what he talks about with Esau and Jacob. Very, very good, and I think it's absolutely correct. It hit home as true, and it goes along with what you just said. So back to you.
Well, this seems to relate to Eden too. So here we kind of have it relating to Eden, Israelite, and Odin. So it's Jacob's name was changed to Israel. So we got it kind of Odin and Odin. Man, this is wild stuff, folks. So, man, so we can almost. Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead of myself now because I'm getting excited. So, keep this tucked away, folks. Because I just learned this today. All right. So anyway, let's get on here. So, 1 Samuel 22. Okay, so this is talking about when David flees. And so David therefore departed thence and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brethren and all his father's house heard it, they went down thither to him, and everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and became a captain over them. And there were about 400 men. And David went thence to Mizpah and Moab, and he said unto the king of Moab, let my father and my mother, I pray thee, come forth and be with you, and I know that God will do it for me. And he brought them before the king of Moab, and they dwelt with him all the while that David was in the hold. And prophet Gad said unto David, abide not in the hold, depart, and get thee into the land of Judah. Then David departed and came into the forest of Hereth. Saul slays the priests of Nob, basically for helping him out. He kills all the priests. Let me just kind of skip ahead here. Verse 11. Then the king sent to call Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, the priests that were in Nob, and they came all of them to the king. And Saul said, hear now, thou son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, my lord. And Saul said unto him, why have ye conspired against me, thou and the son of Jesse? Again, remember in Isaiah 11, where it refers to the stump of Jesse and the root of David. And that thou hast given him bread and a sword, and hast inquired of God for him, and he should rise against me and lie in wait as to this day. Then Melek answered the king and said, and who is so faithful among thy servants as David, which is the king's son-in-law, and goeth at thy bidding, and is honorable in thy house? Did I then begin to inquire of God for him? Be it far from me, let not the king impute anything unto his servant, nor to the house of my father, for thy servant knew nothing of all this, less is more. And the king said, thou shalt surely die, Ahimelech, thou and all thy father's house. And the king said unto the footmen that stood about him, turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand is with David, and because they knew when he fled that they did not show it to me, but the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. And the king said to Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg I think I missed something here. He told one of his servants to do it, and I think he wouldn't. Turn and slay the priests of the Lord, because their hand is also with David, and because they knew when he had fled and did not show it to me. But the servants of the king would not put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of the Lord. Yeah. So the first folks refused the order. Then the king said to somebody else, Doeg, turn thou and fall upon the priests. And Doeg the Edomite. So this is why Edomites are particularly there's the disdain for them as well. And I think I got a link that associates. I think this must be one of the ones I already have up here. I think this one associates Odin with Edom as well. And he fell upon the priests and slew on that day 85. So that's 85 priests that did wear a linen ephod. And Nob, the city of the priests, smote he with the edge of the sword, and both men and women, children and sucklings, and oxen and asses and sheep, and with the edge of the sword. So he just killed them all. What a brutal person. And one of the sons of Ahimelech, the sons of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar showed David that Saul had slain the Lord's priests. And David said unto Abiathar, I knew it that day when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all persons of thy father's house. Abide thou with me, fear not, for he that seeketh my life seeketh thy life. But with me thou shalt be in safeguard. So he continues, of course. But I just wanted to make the point of showing here, incidentally, it was part of the daily Tehillim. But I just wanted to make the point here that David found refuge among the trees. And just like Elijah when he ran from Jezebel. So if the whore of Babylon experience is anything like Elijah's Jezebel experience, just like then, what did we see? They were killing all the priests, and they killed all the priests of Jezebel, and then she came against them. Well, here we have again, they killed all the priests and came after David. And then in the Hanukkah story, they killed all the priests. So they killed the rival priests and then fled into the forests. So we kind of have this trend here. But when they start persecuting the saints and the priests, that's usually the indicator right there that, something's going down. Speaking of which, this door-to-door stuff, one of the other things that didn't settle well with me, if we recall how they do things in incremental steps, step by step, just like the Gratum. Oh, their motto was Gratium something or other, step by step. Somebody had that motto earlier. Was it the blue? Anything. My head's getting jumbled now.
Sorry, I'm not going to be helpful here.
It's fine. Step by step is how they do all this stuff, because if they did it all at once, we would rebel, of course. But Ya'ar. So again, this means forest. But so wood, forest, thicket, or like a honeycomb or comb, not like a hair comb, but a comb of the bee. So this is kind of like a place of refuge that we're talking about earlier. Maybe this will have some relation to that. I'll have to do a little bit of a study on that to see if there's any more significances there. I already share this one. Oh. All right, let's keep on trucking. Oh, okay. So here we are to Loki finally. He's got a show. Not only is he in various Avenger movies, but now he's got a show on Disney. So,
of course,
do you know much about Loki?
No, not just off the top of my head. Nope.
Well, if you recall the Orion figure we studied a couple weeks ago, he was a giant, a half giant actually. And so one of the things that he shares in common with Loki is that Loki too is a half giant. He's supposed to be one of the Nordic god folks, and then also a giant. So this is where things get kind of interesting, because with the Tuatha De Danann, we got the Odin type folks, the tribe of Dan. Everywhere they went, they just conquered with their own strength. They made it a point not to ever rely on the Lord. Instead, they wanted to do everything by their own strength, and they would even name things after themselves. So they always had this prideful mark. But they would encounter these giants known as the Fomorians, which again, we've studied the term fomite, which is fomite is something that can transmit disease, right? Like a contagion or a vector. So fomites were like giant DNA that still exists today. You could call it that. But the Fomorians were the race of giants. And so what's really interesting about this is for a half giant, half whatever god type creature, I guess you want to call it, the Nephilim types of, he's basically a Nephilim. So in the show, though, he's considered a variant. So this is what really struck me, was because here we are talking about all the new variants, the newest one being the Delta. So they talk about the Delta variant now as they're going door to door, which Delta means door. And then here we have Loki variant, which they're talking about this in the context of time, because there's time traveling. And they, I guess in one of the movies, he grabs the Tesseract. Remember, we've covered the Tesseract and the Flurkin cats in the past. Oh, I guess Loki grabs the Tesseract at one point, and when he does, he disappears, because I guess he creates like an aberration in the time flows or something like that. So he becomes what's called a variant, and which I thought was really weird, because they could have used any other type of word. They could have called him a variable, aberration, whatever, but they called him a variant. I just thought that was on purpose,
Yeah, I think it's part of the ritual. And I know a lot of people think that they have to tell us the truth, but I also think it's part of their ritual to tell us the truth.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of the same with voodoo too. Like if you believe in voodoo, it adds to the strength of voodoo, right? Some type of psychological component to it all. But yeah, I think it's also part of divine law that they have to reveal things to you in a karmic kind of way. Also throughout the series, this guy can be seen snacking on different types of snacks that are no longer in production. Like there was a soda I used to get when I was young called Josta or something like that. It was like, it had a Black Panther on it. And it was red and had some type of vine in it or something like, or like, vine extract was in it. But you can see him sipping on one of those, and I haven't seen one of those in like 25 years or something like that, or 20 years. So there's a lot of little Easter eggs like that scattered throughout this. But I guess just like those things, they collect variants throughout time. And so the time cops, their job is to hunt down people like Loki. And I guess when Loki did that, he created several clones of himself somehow on these different timelines, and they all started running amok. And so they recruited this one to track down the others and kill them to correct the timeline. So that's the kind of the story here that they're going with. So they're choosing the bad guy here, the Nephilim, to be their savior in a sense, right?
Yeah,
so
and Loki was
wondering,
supposed to be a bad guy in the originals, with Thor and everything. But of course, that's what they call the anti-hero, where they make the bad guys the good guys.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. So anyway, I just found this very interesting, and we're gonna look into the symbolism here. I think it's. Give me just a second here. Symbolism of the brand of Loki, how it connects to the Sirius star. So the title Sirius Shepherds will become clear here soon why we named it that. So this poem here kind of explains some of his qualities. Loki, the divine thief, stuff stashed throughout the house. Sure. I'm skipping all that. Oh, wait, this is somebody wrote a hymn to him. Never mind. Hold on. I didn't know what I was reading at first. Here we go. Okay. I was wondering what was going on. This is the part of it I wanted. Okay. Loka Brenna. Loki fire, burning bright, you are the daylight in my night, and so oft you were burning delight with your charm and grace and might. This picture is of the star most commonly known as Sirius, or the dog star. In traditional Norse mythology, the star was known as Loka Brenna, Loki's brand or Loki's torch. Being the brightest star in the sky, Loki Brenna was used as a navigational tool. To name something so positive after Loki tells much, he believes. Of course, there are those who state it points out that Loki's role in the burning at the end of the Ragnarok. Exactly, you moron. I'm talking to this guy. I find this quite silly, as it is. He just wants to believe he's good so badly. I find this quite silly, as it is well known in the literature that Surt will be the fire starter, but Surt is a giant also. So, if anything, I'd say Loki unlocks Surt. Anyway, he shouldn't be trusted. He's a giant. And so we've read a lot about giants. So let's skip to the next one. I thought I had one more. Maybe this is it. Yes. Okay. So there's another Loki article right here. I'm sorry. I might have forgot to share that last article, but it wasn't that great. It was just the bottom I wanted to share anyway. This one, however, might be a little bit better. In the scorching heat of summer, although Cancer, the Sheepfoldgate, is when the sun is at the highest point in the sky, being the royal archway of heaven. Sirius, however, is the dog day star. This is the dog days occurs on July 5th, I think the day right after July 4th. So our Independence Day is basically the highest point of Sirius in the sky. So I don't think that was any kind of coincidence. I think that was done on purpose. So when everybody's celebrating the way they are, think about all of the fireworks that are being dispensed into the sky. And I had this epiphany last year when I did a bonfire, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but there's a heavy smell of sulfur in the sky on July 4th under the dog star.
Oh, right, yeah.
And the brand of Loki. And so I really want people to try and understand and appreciate what they might actually be trying to do here. I think, and what we're seeing, I think, is this long time of session with trying to invoke this person or this entity, this Melek Tau Loki character. And it's like, he has his own nation. We even read about the 13 stars and what they represented, and how this nation was formed uniquely in the sense that, you know, it was basically under its own, I can't remember the proper verbiage, how it was phrased, but it was as if like a left-hand path kind of attitude, like the tribe of Dan, like no gods, but yet it was under God, but not a specified God. So it was kind of vague, but it's becoming clear now that which God they might have had in mind all along. Okay, we're going to talk about the dog days. Long ago, before the urban lights and pollution hid the night sky, different cultures plotted images in the heavens by connecting the dots of stars. The shape of constellations were dependent upon the culture. They saw bears, plows, dragons, etc. I'm skipping this. The brightest star, Sirius, happens to be the nose of the constellation Canis Major, or the Great Dog. So I kind of, even though it's depicting Melek Tau as a peacock, I always kind of like to think of Lucifer as a dog, even though he's often characterized as a lion. Also, lion, peacock. I like to think of him as a dog sometimes because, you know, very loyal, but to the point it was a fault, you know, perhaps. And so the big dog here. The big dog happens to be the nose of the constellation Canis Major. The Great Dog, which was one of the Roman astronomer Ptolemy's 48 constellations. On Odin, by the way, is often depicted with two wolves. So it could also be your Canis Major and Minor hunter dogs. Sirius is so bright that the ancient Romans thought that the Earth received heat from it. They considered it to be a second sun. During late July, Sirius is in conjunction with the sun, adding its intense heat to that of the summer season. I don't think we're actually getting any heat from Sirius. But anyway, the Romans named this period of time from the 20 days before the conjunction to 20 days after Dies Canicularis, the dog days of summer. The Romans sacrificed a brown dog at the beginning of the dog days to appease the rage of Sirius, believing that this might give some relief from the discomfort, sickness, and fatigue that accompanied hot weather. You know what is really weird? I might have mentioned this already, but it is really profound to me that my father's dog died on July 5th, like the very first day of dog days. We had our family reunion on the 4th, and he didn't take his dog with him when he moved originally, but since the house that he moved from was on the way home from the family reunion, he chose to stop by the house and pick up the dog and take it to the new home, and then it died the very next day. So I don't know if the dog was just like waiting, you know what I mean, like how dogs are. Yeah, it was very old dog, and I guess it was just like waiting, you know, literally just waiting to die. So I thought it was kind of sad in a way, but it also was very weird. So when it happened, it smacked me right in the face because I'm reading all this stuff already as it is, and for him to die on the like dog days, I just was like, well, that's clearly not a coincidence. But it was a brown dog.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I know, just bizarre. And so when my dad texted me and told me that, it almost sent like a shudder down me. I was like, oh, because he doesn't know what I study. Okay.
But speaking of study, we're 2 hours and 58 minutes in. Just letting you know.
Oh, okay. I only got a couple more links.
Okay.
Okay. Unlike the Romans who associated dog days with horrible ills, the ancient Egyptians welcomed the dog days. For them, Sirius appeared just before the season of the Nile's flooding, so they used the star as a marker for that event. Sirius was referred to as the Nile star, or the star of Isis. Sirius was also revered by the Egyptians, and they refused to bury their dead during the 70 days before its arrival. That is very interesting. I did not know that. When it is hidden from view by the sun's glare, they believe Sirius was the doorway to the afterlife. Interesting, kind of almost like the Sheepfoldgate. And during this annual period, the doorway was thought to be closed. So, again, like the Sheepfoldgate door closes at some point. In the Viking tradition, Sirius was called Loki's brand, and after Loki, the trickster deity. In China, the star was associated with the celestial wolf. In ancient Iraq, the star was called the dog that leads. In Assyria, the star was referred to as the dog of the sun. The Nazi emblem, the swastika, is called a sundog. That's really interesting. So wow, this is so incredible. Okay, in the southern latitude, Sirius was equally important. To the Polynesians, the appearance of Sirius marked winter and integral star used for navigation around the Pacific Ocean. The dog days originally were the days when Sirius rose just before or at the same time as sunrise. But while the dates, which we still call dog days, have remained the same, the position of the sun and constellations have changed. A gradual shift in the orientation of the Earth's axis, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Okay, let's continue here real quick. I don't have to read all of this one, but this one has another mention of it calls him the Scorcher, which again could be related to Surt, because Surt's supposed to be the one that actually ends the earth with his, and basically be an angel that has the power to bring fire in great quantities. So whether that's actually Loki or not, or just him triggering that, one way or the other, he's responsible. But yes, it's associated with being called the glowing or scorcher. Okay, so can't remember what it was in this exactly I wanted to read, but you guys can read that one on your own. Let's hop on over to this one real quick. Well, I want that to be the last thing because that's going to lead into the next episode. So let me read about this doofus real quick. Well, actually, I need to read about him at all. We just need to kind of mention it real quick. So this was one of the other rich people. He wanted to best Bezos and do it 9 days sooner. So he took his Virgin aircraft, and they experienced weightlessness with some other people. And his birthday is actually on the 18th of this month. So it's funny that he didn't even wait till his birthday, which would have still been 2 days ahead of time. He chose to do 9 days ahead of time. So anyway, this reminds me of that verse in Isaiah. And so I'll read that one more time. If I can find it here real quick. Sorry for the... I'm trying to find it. It's just, there's so much information in the Solomon Report thing now.
By the way, he just went up basically in an airplane and went to just do the whole zero gravity thing. We didn't go into space or anything even remotely like that. He's not wearing a helmet or anything like that. It's just a joke.
Isaiah, what was it, 13? Throne. Let's see if I can find it again real quick. So what these guys are doing now is they're all trying to, yeah, okay, so you said in your heart.
Notice CNBC has the Peacock emblem.
Yeah, I chose that on purpose for that reason. Because there were several I could have picked, but I chose that one. Okay, so it says, "For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and I will also sit on the mount of the congregation of the farthest sides of the north." So I couldn't help but think of that verse whenever I'm hearing these stories about Branson and Bezos and, you know, so you got Musk with Dragon, you got Bezos with Blue Origin and Shepard, New Shepard, and then you got this Branson calling his Virgin Galactic Flight, which Virgin is Virgo. So, I mean, really, all these guys are just naming their stuff all strange things, but yeah, not to be overlooked. And this is the last thing. Okay, so And then I gotta eat because my stomach keeps growling. Okay.
It's late for you, 10 o'clock.
Well, yeah, I couldn't help it. Okay, this is we're not going to go into great depth here. I'm just going to kind of gloss over this real quick because we're going to go in a little more depth next time. But this helps. I think that this really helps to crack open the Book of Revelations and really help to explain what's going on here in the text. Oh, I already did that. Okay. All right, so let's get to it real quick. And so the blue is anytime they mention a god or something like that, they'll make it a blue hyperlink so you could hop to that and start reading. So you can spend hours and hours and hours just going in circles reading about these, but it's really, really fun to see all the interesting connections to this stuff. And what I really want to get on top of here is there is indeed a gateway. So I don't know if this directly relates to like the Sheepfoldgate or not, but you know, it's entirely possible because Inanna's spouse is Demuzi, and from what I can tell, Demuzi is a mortal, whereas Inanna Ishtar is said to be like some type of Nephilim goddess figure, and so she's a little tougher, I would imagine, than poor Demuzi. So at one point, she makes her sister Ishtar very angry, or Ishtar rather, and she's the queen of hell. So I guess at some point, Inanna can't be queen of the Most High, so she decides she's going to take over hell instead. She's quite ambitious, and so she goes to hell to take it over, and this is her sister. Ishtar gets really upset with her. And I guess they fight down here, and she gets out of there somehow. I can't remember how. We'll cover this all in more depth next week. But at some point, she gets out, and then Ishtar sends demons after her, and she's able to protect her children and herself, but then they end up dragging Demuzi off into hell. So I kind of think that it's because of how similar this is to Revelation, perhaps Revelation 9. You know, we have a really good candidate here for the worthless shepherd to be the one and the same eighth and final reincarnation of Demuzi, meaning that he would be the wife, or excuse me, meaning he would be the husband then of the whore of Babylon, being Ishtar. So I think it's a really good fit, and this isn't necessarily the article I read already, but the one I have I'll share next week. And so there's even part of it. In fact, I could try searching this in case it's a common enough element. I might be able to find it. Yeah. Anyway, the one article I read, it talked about how Demuzi was prophesied, I think, to come back 8 times. So I thought that was really strange also that the king in Revelations happens to be the 8th and final king, in which case if he's Demuzi's also the shepherd, so he would be the 8th and final worthless shepherd to originate, and he would be over the gate to hell. So, you know, fascinating. So we'll go over that next week. I'll just talk about gatekeeping and gatekeepers, and it's just remarkable, folks. So anyway, we'll read about that next week and compare that to Revelation. So we'll be doing a Revelation 9 study, and I can't remember which other chapter, 17, but oh yeah, here we go. And one day when Demuzi comes back up, the lapis pipe and carnelian ring come up with him. Interesting. And when male and female mourners come up with him, the dead shall come up and smell the smoke offering. So yeah, it's kind of fit in Revelation when the gates of hell literally open up, and the king over them looks to be it's Demuzi. So yeah, it's pretty good stuff, guys. So anyway, we can talk more about him next week, but that's all I have for tonight, man. I do have a few other.
Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
do have some links that didn't make the cut, so I can just share those real quick. They don't have to go on the screen though. So more on Odin. Here's some more stuff on Odin. Got his missing eye. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
That's okay. I was just going to say thanks for all the work you're doing. Thanks
Oh,
for all
no
the
problem.
research, and I love that the Lord is using you to make all these connections. It's truly a blessing for so many of us, and I'm glad the chat's been going and conversing, and I've been able to be a part of that. But I did get the timestamps, and I will put that up sometime after the show. It may not be immediately because I've been sitting long enough that I might need to get up and walk around.
I didn't expect it to be immediate. It's just something new that we haven't done yet, and so if you can give us any feedback on that, and if you're listening, let us know what you think. You know, is it helpful? Should we keep doing it? Because it is a little bit of extra effort for Erin.
It's not.
But
that hard.
if anybody in the audience wanted to help with it, so it's one less thing, that'd be welcome.
That'd be great if anyone is somebody that wants to be on and be able to listen the whole way through. And it's not timestamped for every article. It's just kind of like a change of subject. Like, you know,
yeah,
like
that's the idea.
Kind of a change of subject a little bit. You know, like I wanted to put in when you're reading like you do the regular stuff at the beginning, the daily Tehillim, I wanted to put a timestamp for that. And then, you know, timestamp for cyber attacks and timestamp for 5G. Timestamp for Sheepfoldgate, kind of stuff like that, and just it doesn't have to be certainly every single article. And then as you were posting the articles, I posted them in the Solomon report in the order that in the Discord. I posted each article, even though they may already be there from your prior research. They're actually posted now in order on the Discord channel of Solomon Report.
Well, that's going to be really helpful. Thank you. So I hope that's a trend we can continue. So, and then also I'm going to try and download some videos, edit them, and, you know, because as we cover things week to week to week to week, we kind of build on them. So my idea is that maybe I can make maybe not 3 hour long, but maybe a 1 hour long video, but every single piece is from like 10 different Solomon reports or something like that. And then start putting those out. Maybe it'll be easier to study on certain topics that way. Or we could do like a live of the video put together already. So like we're just kind of sitting in the chat with everybody else or something like that. I don't know how it'll.
Yeah, that'd be so you can premiere and it looks live, but we're just in the chat and we're not actually talking.
Yeah, but it's still going to kind of seem new revisiting it because
my ears just started ringing.
Well, I guess that's our cue.
It must be. I don't know. Yeah.
And no gremlins tonight, folks.
Yes, everything went smoothly and we didn't get kicked off.
And I had a testimony, if you didn't mind.
Please.
I forgot earlier. So if you've been praying for my brother, I really appreciate it because I was at the point where I was going to become violent with him. I had no other choices, but I prayed to God and I asked him to bind my brother so that I wouldn't have to transgress his laws and fight him. and what do you know? He went and he actually called the sheriff and had them come and pick him up. And presently he's I don't even know where he's at. He's in a hospital somewhere. So praise God. So where nobody else could do anything, he delivered him into his own care. So I hope that when this is over, I got my brother back, because I always imagined, you know, and I didn't imagine going through this apocalypse stuff without him, you know. So, but man, it's been a rough ride, folks. So keep praying for us, please. It's working, it's helping. My mother's been really emotional about it, but she said that her prayers were answered, and I thought, well, mine was too.
Amen.
But it was one of the few times I was actually had a lot of emotion in my prayer when I was praying. I was very angry and very upset, and I just got I got to thinking about it, and I was like, man, maybe those are the prayers he really hears. And how often do we pray where we're not really using that emotion? That energy really does work, I think. So
just kind of a routine to get. It can become routine. It can get that.
Yeah,
way.
even when you don't think it is, it's something about that emotion. So
well,
I encourage
I'll tell you,
people.
When I was going through that anxiety about a year ago, and I was praying more than I've ever prayed in my whole life. I was praying every 30 seconds. I'm not kidding, because it was. I told you guys, if you recall, it was probably the blood pressure. The blood pressure had gone up, and because I hadn't gone to the doctor in a year because of COVID and mass and everything, and I didn't think it was. I'm like, oh, I'm healed, right? Well, I went to the doctor, and my blood pressure was in stroke zone, basically. But ever since my blood pressure has gotten better, I don't really have the anxiety. But it was so bad. I just couldn't understand where it just came. It seemed to come out all of a sudden, and now I was just anxious, and I'm like. All I could do is walk around the house and clean stuff. I'm like, I just got to be doing something. I couldn't just sit still. It was out of control. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed more than I've ever prayed. And I'm like, please deliver me from this. I'm like, so I kept telling people, I said, if anything came out of this, I've never prayed so much in my whole life. If anything good comes out of this severe anxiety, I had never prayed like I prayed during that. So just to relate. It was about me, but...
Glad to hear it, because I mean, I find the prayers that work best are the ones that aren't about me personally, but it's nice to hear that you got.
Well, unfortunately, anxiety is so weird that I don't think you can. The sad part is you can't think about much else but yourself.
It dominates your mind.
It
yes,
does.
It's like a sickness of the mind and not the body.
Right.
But it can have an effect on your body too. Like I've lost weight and all sorts of things because of anxiety. Yeah. So you got to have peace, and that's where Yahweh gives you that peace. You need to really thrive. Oh, I don't know how I missed it, but there was another article right here in the Loki series. There's something called Rock's Cart, but what I see is Ox Cart, and you got the two X's again. So remember, they had wheels on the cauldrons and stuff. They had like wheels on the cauldrons and stuff outside the temple when they'd move them around and stuff. So, that alone is kind of interesting. But I don't even know what this is. I didn't have time to look through it. So if you guys want to find out what Rock's Cart is, but the Loki variant and all of them, they go into this place. So any fans can school us there. Oh, and somebody recommended a YouTube channel here called What the Flock TV.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
so
I think it's a smaller channel, so go give support.
Thank you all for sharing time with us, and time is a very precious thing, especially right now. There's not a whole lot of it, I don't think. So to be here right now is a blessing. Thank you, and share this information with folks if you found it helpful. Leave a like if you like.
Yeah, please leave a like and share and join the Discord, because that's where all the articles are dropped, and that's where we have conversation. Not every channel in the Discord is meant for conversation. A lot of us just drop in research. I know it's overwhelming. I overdid it. I did overdo it, but one of these days we'll figure out how to make it not so overwhelming, and we'll just kind of...
I'm working on it. I got a solution in mind.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Well, thanks for being here. Go get some food, and until next time, yeah?
Meow.
Meow. Good night.
Farewell, folks. Vaya con Dios.
Peace.
Behold the man. Behold the man.
You either get right or get left. Ain't going nowhere, but you're taking many steps. Treadmill, homie, you just wasting your breath. But I know a breath breather. Inhale, exhale, life will feed ya. And what manner of man is this to feed a whole crowd with 5 loaves and a couple of fish? He's my daddy, my Abba, my father, my Jehovah Jireh. Talk to him, and he's more than this, more than whips, chicks in a bottle of Chris. So catch catch up to the realest. It's funny how the truth hurts and they scared to feel it. Things about to change cause Young Tef in the building. Heavenly sent, I'm a vessel that's willing. New age penicillin, bring life to the living.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, he gave his life for your sins and transgressions.
the man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the third day he came alive.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, he gave his life for your sins and
Behold
transgressions.
the man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the third day he came alive.
What has become of this world and what has happened to me? Sound to sin for temptation for the pleasure it brings. Wake up, yo, cause time is just slipping away. Rearrange your position and dodge this flame. Now it's my time to take responsibility to take that blame. Cause my head's messed up and now I'm feeling the pain. I pray to God to take this curse of my soul. I see the devil straight burning, yearning out of control. One less for him that makes one closer to thee. Our Lord Jesus Christ saving souls indeed. He's got the love to overpower even me. So let's pray for better days and he will bring. But my mind's been up in smoke, I said straight clouded, not comprehending the Almighty, but I be shouting. Now hearing the word I spoke, it was hypocritical, but it's 208 and it's a subliminal message.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, he gave his life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the third day he came alive.
Behold the man.
He paid the price, he gave his life for your sins and
Behold the
transgressions.
man.
He bled and died for you and I, and on the third day he came alive.
In the name of Christ Jesus, we have been called to proclaim this message of forgiveness. Maybe you never even heard this, but he is calling you now cause he wants you as a witness. You have been born to believe. It's like an instinct inherent, ingrained in your conscience. He is our Father and Savior, and so we sing and praise and exalt our Creator. Follow the truth and believe. We are redeemed by the price that he paid on the tree. Our penalty intervened. By his grace we are saved for eternity. A sacrifice for our peoples. It's a gift that he gave us, a gift for the sequel. Read the word and consume it. Come on and feed and indulge on the fruit of the Spirit.
Behold